nice, so,
Everything all right? Okay, gotcha. Hey, Paul, can you do me a favor? Check with me.
Hello, Sylvia. How are you? I'm good.
see, it's nice to be loved, though, isn't it?
The updated expenditures that I sent out last had full, yeah, had the, yes. Correct.
Brian, do we have to pick up stuff upstairs? The inserts, or did you just pass them around?
We're on?
There's nothing to pick up.
Okay, I call the Admin Finance Committee of the Whole Budget Meeting number 4 to order. We're going to go right into the Water Fund Budget Summary.
Alderman, I have one handout tonight that I will hand out.
Okay.
It's basically, since I've handed out or distributed the original water fund budget, you know, it's already been a few weeks, almost a month, so we have some updated numbers I can
Okay.
hand out. There's not a lot of them, so it'll be easy to go through.
Okay.
And what I did is similar to what I did on the other updates. So as I hand this out, anything that's bold and has a shadow on it was a change from the first document that I distributed.
Gotcha.
So it's probably easiest to, on the water fund, to go through what I'm handing out now as we go through it.
Before we start looking at these numbers, and this is mostly for the
Is
folks
this-
at home,
okay.
I just want to let everybody know
Water fund,
that
okay.
our water fund costs from the year ending last year, 2013, to 2017, the water fund cost is going to be going up $2 million. Okay,
Okay,
I
so
got one. Thanks.
all the attached pages are changed too?
Only where there's a mark. So,
This is the one you gave out before.
So with the DePage water costs, again, from fiscal year ending 2013, our water cost was $3,527,000.
I got
By
it.
the year,
Let me put this away.
fiscal year ending 17, we're going to be at $5,598,000. Again, I'm just trying to let everybody at home understand the cost of why water is going up so much, mostly from the city of Chicago. Let me start with the revenue.
We're getting some weird static.
Yeah.
You hear it?
You guys hearing we're getting a lot of feedback from static.
talking too loud.
Yeah, probably am. There you
Probably.
go.
No, just joking.
Okay, try it now.
Okay. Let's start with fiscal year FYE. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
listen to it again.
yeah. You hear that?
Phones
I
on?
might be the culprit. Sorry about that.
Oh,
Okay.
cell phones.
I had my phone
Yeah,
out
let's
right
make
by
sure our
my
cell
mic,
phones
and
are
I'm sure
off.
that was it.
Okay. Sounds better.
Alderman Shower, before you
Yes.
go on, could you, for the audience, just remind everybody, or perhaps Treasurer Corrin can, of the mandatory increases, the percentage increases for the cost of water by the city of Chicago? Those are not increases by the city of Darien, it's just a pass-through, correct?
Correct.
And do we remember what those the percentage jumps were offhand?
The percentage per year is 12%. So if inflation is 2.43% average, it's 5 times inflation every year for 4 years.
So they were increased,
There was a larger, I don't have the sheet that
Yeah.
the Water Commission sent out, but there was, the percentages were like 40%. It was really a
Right,
large
right.
percent increase that not only us, but everybody in the Water Commission, DuPage Water Commission, but everybody in the South Suburb, anybody that's
anyone on city water.
that on City of Chicago
Correct.
Water, yes. And when that went up drastically as it did, the DuPage Water Commission's contract with the City of Chicago basically says they can't raise the suburban rates more than their own residents. So that's a check and balance. And the DuPage Water Commission Executive Board and the chairman met with the City of Chicago on a couple of occasions to really dive into what are they doing to justify a rate increase.
Correct.
And there's a couple of studies that were distributed or informational packets showing exactly the capital projects they're doing to improve the water distribution. But again, those improvements did cost a lot of money, and I can dig that sheet out. I just don't have it right in front of me, but
Yeah,
it was
I
a
guess
large
as we're,
increase.
as we're talking water, I think the point is it's Darien pass, or DuPage County really passing that through. It's not something, a tax that the city has incurred on its residents.
Correct. If you look through, year to year from either the budget or audited number to the DuPage Water Commission, which is our largest expense in the budget, you'll see how that has grown, obviously at that, I want to say again, 40% increase, but I could verify that.
Yeah, and frankly, the city of Chicago has to give an annual report to DuPage County Water Commission. And it's distributed to all the charter members as to what they're doing with those funds.
So let's start with the revenue and water sales. Our budget for water sales for fiscal year ending 14 was $6,318,567. However, we only had water sales of $5,635,018 for a shortage of $683,549 less, basically. If you take a look and we go down to total expenditures, we are expecting expenditures for FYE 14 to be $6,066,503. Turned out, as of right now, and this is what we're pretty accurate on this from these numbers so far.
I'm
With
sorry, Alderman, I was
Yeah.
reading those percent increase. I have those if you want me to mention those,
Yeah.
because I have the numbers
Right.
here. The rate increase, the commission increased the rates 30% in 2012, 20% in 2013, 18% in 2014, and then 17% in 2015. And that, again, that's the rate the commission charges to us. So the rate that Chicago charged to them, I don't know that exact increase because it's not exact. They didn't only pass on the increase. They had to increase their rates. The commission did on top of the city of Chicago rates. But again, as far as we're concerned, those increases are what we have to
Pass on.
pass through. Yeah, correct.
Brian, you may also want to mention, what do we try to target as a fund in this area at the end of every year? I know we've seen it as high as $1 million and so forth.
As a fund balance,
I know, I'm looking at the numbers and I can see them. We always try to have a target. Is it $500,000 now, or?
well, I would say our water fund has always been extremely lean in the fund balance. We've never met a 3-month or 6-month reserve. We've always been pretty tight. So if you had a 60-day reserve, you're about 11 million. You're at about. You are at about $1.1 million in reserve, and we're only getting to a reserve of 937,000 into the third year.
Right.
So,
And
in
with-
addition to this, we have the water depreciation fund,
Right.
which for budgeting purposes we separate, but for auditing purposes it's really one fund.
Right.
So there's a little more money in there that, again, it's collectively meets this fund balance, but it's not close to the 60-day.
Perfect. Okay. Back to total expenditures, again, $6,066,000 is what we budgeted, and unfortunately, we're going to come in higher at $6,310,198. So that's about $244,000 extra from what my math is. Let's take a look at that real quick.
I think it was 652.
Yeah, 244. So our ending fund balance as of fiscal year ending 13 was $872,000. Now we were anticipating that we were going to end up making $268,000 off of our budget for a fund balance of $855,000. But because of the shortage and the increase in water, we actually are running a deficit of $652,180. When you minus that from the $872,495, we're going to end up having a fund balance of $220,315. Okay? So if we look to go to fiscal year ending 15 and what we're requesting, and the other thing is, for people at home, we are now charging through this end of fiscal year ending 14 of $6.40 per 1,000 gallons, and it's $5 per bill.
Per billing period, which is every 2 months.
So as we go into fiscal year ending 15, all right, we're hoping to get water sales of $7,064,348. Everything else are pretty limited, nothing too much of an increase there. When I mean that, I'm talking inspection, other water sales, meter sales, and then interest income. But the big increase would be the water sales. All right. As we go down to expenditures in this area, we're going to be looking at $6,912,002 for a fiscal year balance of $164,346. When you add that to the $220,000, we're looking at $384,661. Now, if we're looking at 60 days reserve at 1.1 million, this is probably about 20 days worth of reserve, correct? Somewhere in that neighborhood?
Correct.
Okay,
And we're not doing a transfer to the water depreciation fund, I see.
No.
correct. So, when we were first looking at these numbers, we were thinking about the numbers of somewhere in the $8 range per thousand. And then more and more we got into the discussion, we figured looking at about $7.75 per thousand and at $10 for every bill period, which is every 2 months. Okay, so we'd be going from 640 to 775. By doing that, we're still basing those numbers on having a reserve of only the 384,000. So if we go into fiscal year ending 16 and then fiscal year ending 17, if you take a look at the bottom, we're going from 775 to 850 to $9 per thousand for fiscal year of ending 17. And with that, we'd be at 937,000 in this fund by the year ending 17.
And that rate listed is for our Darien residents. The unincorporated rates are an additional 20% on top of that rate.
Correct.
So I have that higher rate for them factored into the revenue, but I just wanted to illustrate the resident rate.
How many
Gotcha.
how many water residents do we have?
About 9,000.
It would take me a
Darien.
minute to get
Yeah.
that.
It's households, isn't it?
Yes,
And I thought we had about 8,000 or 9,000 households.
it's 9,000 approximately, but it ranges a little bit back and forth
Yeah,
due to,
That's just Darien residents.
yeah.
yes.
So that would be,
You know, we break it primarily down by gallons, so it's, when you say how many households,
Well,
right,
you have a $10 per bill, so that's.
Yes.
That's, you're calculating that based on some number.
yes, and I'm,
it would be like 9,000 households
Oops,
times
I'm
that
sorry.
$10.
yeah, 9,000.
If we turn the page for the budget, a couple things really jump out. It's actually 3 items. Obviously, we talked about the cost for water. Again, ending in 13, cost of water was $3,527,000. We budgeted for $3,951,000, and the cost for this year so far is $4,133,411. And that's probably because of the extra water main breaks that have gone on.
Yeah, we were on course with our estimates until the last several months. That we, again, we talked about the water main break or leak that we had before that was not identified till very recently, and that is, at least for the last several months, we attribute an increased bill to the Water Commission for that. So going forward, we have 2 more bills this year, and we're hoping those will go back in line to what our estimates were.
Gotcha. So if we look at the top page in salaries and overtime, salaries budgeted was 453, came in at 457. The big one is overtime. We budgeted 50,000 in overtime, and we're going to be probably coming in at 125,000, which is an extra 75K. Again, water main breaks and how many?
Do the drivers of the snow plows that typically work in the water department, is there overtime for snow plowing in this water budget?
I
Or
believe,
does it stay with the
Yes.
Public Works? It does? You split it? Okay.
yes.
So again, that's up 75,000. If you take a look under benefits, Social Security is pretty much in line. IMRF is slightly up from budgeted of 71,552 to 83,100, but it drops down to 77,000 in FYE 15. If you take a look at medical life insurance, we budgeted 110,000. We're going to be coming in less at 86,700, but again, budgeting back to 110,000 for FYE 15. But if you look at the numbers, budget versus actual and benefits, we went budgeted at 226 and dropping down to 215, so a savings of $11,000. However, when we go down to operating, the first thing that we want to take a look at is liability insurance, and that would be IRMA, correct?
Correct.
If you take a look at FYE 13, our numbers are 119,000. This year we budgeted 194,311, and that's what we're going to come in at. But if you take a look at FYE 15, you're looking at 213,167, and if you go to 16 and 17, you're looking at 232 and then 254. So over 100% increase in that area in 4 years.
The reason for that?
Where are you talking? I'm sorry, Alderman Ellis.
Liability insurance.
Under operating.
Irma.
What percent did you say, Ted? I'm sorry. What-
If you're looking at fiscal year 17, 254,090, and that's engulfing everything, but you're looking from liability at 119.
Oh, liability back then, we had a large surplus credit in Irma.
Okay.
So we, all of our insurance numbers should be under budget that same year because as we got our premium notice, we also had X amount of dollars in what's called our reserve fund.
Okay.
And you can let that sit in that fund, or you could take that money out to
Okay.
reduce your premium. And I believe that was the year we, I believe we took that out of the bills.
Which is good. So looking at the numbers, it's not going to be a 100% increase. It's just mostly a credit for that FYE 13.
That 13 happened to be a good
Okay.
year.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, if we go down to completely under operating, fiscal year ending at 382,514 for FYE 13. We budgeted for this year at 533,669, and for FYE 14, we came in about $1,000 less at 532,306. And as if you go out to 16 and 17, you're looking at 546, and then 17 for 579. Again, going down to contractual, all the numbers are pretty much pretty much in line until you get to the Beige Water Commission, and that's the cost of water, $3,527,000. Budgeted this year, $3,951,000. We're going to be coming in at $4,133,000. Budget request is $4,864,000. 16 will be $5,393,000, and FYE 17 will be $5,598,000. So
These are based upon what?
Based upon the known rate. Now, one of the differences you might notice with some other communities, as an example, the DuPage Water Commission runs their rate increase on a calendar year. So when we go from 332 and the next increase is 397, that's a January 1st increase. So sometimes around that time, you'll read where other communities have raised their rates. We have not done it like that. So we use an estimated rate now that will take us through X amount of months at the lower rate and 4 months at the higher rate.
Okay.
So then we'll raise those at typically at budget time and not twice throughout the year like you might see some other communities do, or other communities might raise it just at raise it in January.
but the cost for water should be a little bit over $2 million in 4 years.
Of an increase?
Yeah. And again, that's passed on from the city of Chicago.
Yeah,
to
when we're
DuPage
looking
to
out,
us.
we're looking out into fiscal year 17 rate. You know, we have a flat rate of 468. We don't have any identified increases past that. So we're using that 468, which actually starts in the preceding January and runs through that year. So, you know, again, if next year, if we get information that the commission would raise the rates again or Chicago, we would have to adjust that.
Again, the bottom line, budgeted $6,066,000, and our actuals are $6,310,000, mostly because of the increase in cost of water and the increase in overtime for water main breaks and everything else. So let's turn the page, please. If you take a look at salaries and benefits, again, we've already discussed this. Going down to operating 50-4219. Again, Irma is 194,040. Everything else, safety boots, rubber boots, safety vests, safety glasses, and gloves. These are all pretty much standard costs that we buy every year, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, wellness fair and flu shots, $315. Why don't we just put that in the maintenance budget request in the future? Because I think about if you're going to get flu shots for everybody, which makes sense, get people healthy and making sure that in case, you know, they're working overtime, that we have people out there. I'm just asking that
Well,
question.
we have now, we actually changed that this past year where our health insurance actually is paying for some of our wellness fair expenses.
Okay.
And that's an amount if we run above and beyond what the test costs might be.
Okay. All right.
So our health insurance provides, you know, the blood workup, the flu shot, but there's a few other tests that are kind of optional that, depending on how many people participate, would depend on what we can offer.
Okay. Anybody have an issue with that at all? Okay. Legal fees, SAMI, hospital SAMI review, fire extinguisher maintenance, CDL reimbursement, safety lane. Yes,
What
please.
is it, what actually is SAMI?
That's for the drug reviews by the hospital, because we have random drug testing and Illinois.
For CDL drivers.
Yes.
Going to 50-4223, maintenance of building, 24,877. That's a drop from what I remember. Seeing that? Yeah, we were at 62,000, so we're down to 24,877. The only question is garage doors for 3105. What's this question with that?
The garage doors at the Public Works facility are a little bit antiquated, and they do require maintenance. We never know when a panel's gonna basically bust, or a spring on one of those. We try, we keep everything greased from a maintenance standpoint. Again, those doors get a lot of use, obviously, and they're large, oversized doors, so we never know when a panel's gonna break. Each panel could be anywhere from, approximately $500 up to $900, depending on what else is required.
Gotcha, okay.
I have a question on, it looks like we took out bottled water for 5 gallons from last year to this year.
Correct. The goal of it is, if you recall, earlier this year, we're gonna be converting over to Lake Michigan water with a proposed water main that's out in front. That work hasn't been done yet, so once we get Lake Michigan water, there will be no need for buy bottled water.
Okay, maintenance of equipment, 50-4225. I think it jumps out at anybody, pretty standard. 50-4231, maintenance of the water system, 153,180. The big thing is discretionary expenditures, the water main tap machine for $5,710.
And with the water tap machine, a lot of times when we do water main breaks or even routine maintenance, water services, the machine tends to catch the water service, or water services are sometimes rotted at what's referred to as the corporation. The corporation is the item that inserts into the water main. So in many cases, we have to put a clamp over that corp hole, which is a threaded hole, and we have to drill a new hole. Basically, we've been borrowing it from other municipalities. It's time that we have our own machine, and it's a machine that we'll use quite frequently, and it'll pay for itself here within a year, basically, from a year to a year and a half at the best.
Any issues with that?
Just one question, Dan. I guess through February, we're at $89,000 expended in that account versus a budget of $149,000, and yet we're increasing it to $159,000. And I know in your projections, you're still anticipating the $149. You're comfortable with that $149 budgeted and actual you're projecting?
At this point, yes.
Which item is that?
Dan, that was one too that,
Maintenance of
with the winter ending here, we are still not sure of what we're gonna find everywhere,
That's
so we
what
thought
we're
it's
afraid
best
of.
to leave it where it is.
Prime example of that is the valve that's currently the valve that was identified today that needs to be, maybe it's just
Okay, again, as long as you've looked at it, I'm
understood.
Anything else from that section? Postage mailings, quality control, everything's pretty standard there.
I guess I'll.
Go ahead, please.
I didn't do this at the beginning, but quality control, again, Dan, we're at $10,000 through February, projecting 16,000.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
what line item is that?
Quality control, 4241. We're at, we had budgeted 16,390.
I'm
You're
sorry.
projecting 16, and we're at 10 through February.
Part of the problem is that with the EPA, we have certain requirements that basically come out in late March, anywhere between late March and early May, so we never know what the EPA is really gonna present to us.
Dan, is all the testing done this year, I think?
Most of the testing is done, and I know I had looked at, I believe that was reduced already. Bear with me one moment, please. Right, I'm sorry, I'm missing that one sheet on my end over here for projection. we're looking at, do you have the projected,
We're saying 16, and Mike, you said the year-to-date was about 10?
10,000 through February.
yes, I'm sorry, and with that, we may have one more on the reduced lead and copper. We still believe that was gonna be coming up in, April, so there is one more test that needs to be completed yet.
50-4255 supplies and operation, 7,160 is the budget request. We're running at about 6,000 for it.
We budgeted 6,000, so far we've expended $565 through February.
What's up with the chlorine gas?
Chlorine gas, we're gonna be purchasing some additional chlorine gas. We've been very fortunate not to be utilizing that much chlorine gas. That DuPage Water Commission through Lake Michigan has been providing us a very optimal level of chlorine, in which case it's decreased quite a bit.
Are you all right with 4,500 then, or?
At this point, yes.
Michael, anything else on that? Okay. Training and education, tuition reimbursement is a discretionary for 500 and management seminars for 500.
Do you want me to? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
no,
didn't
go,
realize-
please,
I
Dan,
wasn't sure
you're
if that was a
cordially
question.
invited.
I wasn't sure if that was a question or a
No,
statement.
it's
I
under discretion,
apologize.
that's all right, buddy.
I apologize. Basically, what it is, again, it's the opportunity for water class operators to make sure that they try to, the operators that are not currently operators, it encourages them to basically go to school to get what's referred to as a Class C water operator's license under the state of Illinois. The second part of this is also for operators to continue enhancement with their skills, so we're not tearing up ComEd services, for example, or whatever the case is. So it's just another level of opportunities where the guys become smarter and work smarter with the machines that they're given.
Dan, I mean, it seems in the scheme of things, it's not a big number. How many people does that train or provide reimbursement for?
On the machine operator training, it's usually 2. It's approximately $900 a piece, in which case they go, it's downstate, it's a facility that the local union has. It's a very, very sophisticated area for them to basically play with toys, if you want to say.
No, I don't want to say that.
Any
No,
issues?
it's a very good training program. It's very thorough.
Any issues with this? Okay. 50-4267 telephone, 10,800. Uniforms, 3,114. Utilities, gas, electric, sewer, 48,800. Pretty much in line from before. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'll just take a pause there. We're at 28,000 on that account through February. Although I know, I don't know what utilities are running March and April, but
Yeah, currently, I know the next bill that's going to be coming up is probably going to be definitely a higher expense.
50-4273 vehicles, gas and oil, 22,575.
13,000 through February.
That is probably a little bit high at this point. Again, it was based on last year's, some of last year's costs, which were unpredictable. I know we had looked at potentially reducing that. I want to see what next month's bill was going to come in. I know we've been averaging about, for fuel, I believe our last bill was close to 22,000, if I'm not mistaken. Paul, I don't know if that sounds familiar.
But that's allocated among all the different departments?
Correct. I understand that, yes. And I want to say ours was approximately 5,000 to 7,000. I may be wrong on that figure.
Dan,
This whole budget's about 22.5. So this year, I looked at the street department and thought we might actually come in about 20,000, but I didn't have the bills, and it was a small amount. I did not reduce that for the current year estimate. You're talking about the vehicles for
Right.
gas and oil, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, which naturally rolls into the following year too, so when we look at
Yes.
the current year, if it's $20,000 under for the current year, I would assume that would sort of imply that the following year should also be reduced, but, again, gas and oil, like I told you before, it's,
We have no
anybody's
problem
guess,
reducing
so.
that to 43,000.
That's electric, Dan. Mike's on the next line, the vehicle gas and oil, I believe.
Correct. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. 43,000, we'd like to reduce the one above that based on what we're seeing. I know Nicor will usually have a higher bill based on the previous one, and that's for account 4271, whereas 4273, we could reduce that down to 18,500 at this point.
Okay, so you're reducing the utilities down to 43?
43, yes.
And
how
ga-
about-
and
oh,
gas to
And
18?
gas to 18.5 at this point.
Also for the following year?
I know we left it for next year at 22,575.
No,
Again,
the
I
utilities.
kind of
I'm talking-
caution it. Are you
utilities.
back on utilities?
But that
I
includes
think we'll
electric,
be
right?
bidding that shortly, and I'm
Yeah,
not
that's,
sure where the
yeah,
rates are gonna be.
I wouldn't change that
So,
number,
yeah, I wouldn't change those.
so.
Okay, which number are we not changing?
We're
For,
only
uh,
changing the current year estimated actual
In the current, not going
for utilities.
Not changing this
16.
budget year.
I know Nicor, some of their prices have recently gone up too.
Contractual services, 50-4320, audit, 10,000.
Just a
Standard.
quick question on
Sure.
that. Don't want to wake a sleeping dog, but it's been 10,000 the whole way across. They've always
Well,
done that?
we have a 4-year quote on the audit fee, and actually it is going up nominally a few $100s per year.
Okay.
But that increase has already been reflected through the administrative part of the budget. We just fragment part of it and apply some of it to the water fund, so kept it stagnant. Theoretically, we could increase it 100 or 2 and take 100 or 2 out of administration, but we have, I believe, 2 more years on the contract, Paul.
I thought it ran with the term of the mayor. I thought we'd be going to RFP next year already.
I thought we went with
I would
4
have
the
to
last
look.
time,
I-
but
Yeah.
you'd have to take, at least
Yeah.
goes through the next year.
Okay.
Consulting professional services, 13,000. Again, that's the same for budget and going out through 16 and 17.
And 8,000 through February.
Correct. There's some additional telemetry that we're currently working on now, so
50-4326, leak detection for 19,500. Leak locating, 5,000. Leak locating quality control, 14,500.
again, what that is, 2 separate programs. The first one, a leak locating throughout the year. There's gonna be situations where we cannot determine where the leak is, in which cases a company is utilized that has the opportunity to, through sound, identify where the leak is specifically. And the leak locating quality control, this is a program that we do every year right after we flush fire hydrants. And the purpose of this is to identify leaks through correlation against sophisticated equipment that listens through every single water main, valve, fire hydrant, and service throughout the city to determine where we have leaks, and they also pinpoint it.
The reason I asked this question, is that going to be enough? That's my main concern with this year.
There's a potential that we may be over. Again, it's very difficult to say with the winter that's been at hand. We feel we got a good grip on one of the water main breaks that was identified a couple weeks ago. And again, we're starting to see some pumpage somewhat level out. So if there is an extra, we will bring it back to the city council for emergency funding if required.
For the current year, Ted, through February, we're only at $642.
That's it?
So we still theoretically have a
Okay.
full budget of almost
Because
$20,000.
most of this stuff, don't we do in the spring months anyway?
That is true. Right in April, is basically when we'll be expending this portion of it, provided that, spring is here and we can flush hydrants. So there's a possibility that we may not be able to get this under this year's budget. Again, we're not anticipating that, but with this weather, the way it's been going, we just want to kind of put it out there. We also did have some recent bills that were just signed today, as a matter of fact. I believe we owed about 1,500, I'll call it, $1,500 worth of leak locating that was required due to situations that occurred in the last month.
Alderman Shower, also, I just received a text that Kathy, Sylvia, and Mike are hard to hear. So you three,
Okay, we've got to
Get
get
a
closer
little
to
closer.
our microphones.
and thanks to whoever sent that. I'm not sure who sent that, but thank you.
Okay.
They'll be sorry.
50-4336, data processing, the county meter reading at 152,328. Again, that's standard through FYE 17. 50-4340, DePage Water Commission, $4,864,876. We keep bringing this up to everybody at home so everybody can understand. These are pass-through costs. This is not from us. This is from DePage Water Commission, which is in turn from the city of Chicago. which is gonna be an increase of, what, 17% you were saying for this year?
Yeah, I think that was it.
Okay.
Dan, I have a question on that.
17, yeah.
Are Darien residents required to take water from the city of Darien?
No, we do not have a mandatory hookup policy.
So if someone wanted to put in a well to provide
Correct.
their water services, there's no restriction on that?
Provided they meet the criteria through DuPage County Health Department, yes, they can put in a well.
That's pretty hard to get, Dan, with lot sizes, if I'm not mistaken.
With wells?
Yes, is that difficult?
No, with septic, yes, but with well water, strictly well
okay.
water, the answer is yes, provided there's no EPA regulation or EPA site that's restricted, they're pretty much free to do it. And, the real question is, how deep is the water table?
I know it's expensive because I've been on a well system, but,
Okay.
because then you have to put in water treatment systems in your home, water softening systems and all that, but a resident did ask me that, and I really had, nobody had ever asked me that, so I had no clue.
Yeah,
as
we
to
do
the
not
answer.
have a mandatory connection.
Capital purchases, 50-4815, equipment, $2,610. This is half of the 5220 for the copy machine, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Ted, if you don't mind, again,
Yep.
going back to the current year, we're budgeting 72, showing 68, and we're at 23 through February 28th, Dan?
On 4815,
Yes.
yes, one of the biggest upgrades there is the SCADA system communication upgrade. That still has not been completed due to the weather. We're hopefully going to be, they'll be scaling the water tower this weekend to get the antennas up that's required for this job.
Thank you.
50-4880, water meters, budgeting 25,000. What are we running at so far this year on that?
11,000 through February.
We just put an order in for additional meters, and again, we'll be very close to it.
Service charges, 250,000.
That's the reimbursement to the general fund for the expenses. There's a number of expenses in the general fund that are attributable to the water fund. So instead of dividing each of those, we have a one-time fee for that.
Gotcha. And then debt retire, 297,256. Going out to 16 is 299, 225, and that's same for 17. That's for the water tower, correct?
Correct. And what we have is that is built into our water rate. So we, the city council has, since I've been here and before that, abated those bonds because we collect it in the revenue. So because of the timing, I will have those ordinances on the next city council meeting to abate that 297,000.
So, is everybody okay with the 775 and the $10?
One of the things just to mention on the $10 fee from 5, what the intentions there are is to capture the fixed costs. So there's a number of I don't have that right here, but there's a number of expenses that are fixed, no matter if somebody is in Florida for 2 months or if somebody uses a lot of water. As an example, the bond payment. If everybody in town shut off their water for the year, we still have some payments we need to make. So the fixed costs are to cover some of those, or the fixed cost charge is to cover some of those fixed costs that we experience in the water system.
We being Darien.
Correct.
So that is something above and beyond what the Water Commission is charging.
Yeah, what the Water Commission charges us is literally the one line item in this budget. So obviously, as we buy water from the Water Commission, our relationship then ends, and basically, we then, our own distribution system is ours to maintain. There is a fixed cost also with the Water Commission, and the fixed costs I have range anywhere from $643,000 to $682,000, and this fixed cost fee picks up about $525,000 of those costs. So there's not a right way to do that. You'll see it different in different communities. Some have that fixed cost higher to capture all the fixed costs. Some communities have it a bit lower, but I think this is reasonable given our fixed costs.
And just to put this in perspective for everybody, at $7.75, I don't know what the fixed cost is at Westmont, but Westmont's $8.05 per thousand, so we're still cheaper than Westmont. But again, we're just trying to give everybody an idea of what the costs are from the city of Chicago.
But again, just to, so that there's no confusion, the $10 is something new to the bill. That wasn't
No,
there.
currently,
Increase.
currently, there's a $5 charge on each bill
Okay.
from DuPage County, who does the billing as a service for us, and there's a charge for that.
Right.
So the fixed fee would go from that $2.50 per month or $5 a bill to $5 per month or $10 per bill, because we're billed every 2 months.
Okay,
So that fee is doubled, yes.
so we're adding $5 for Darien for every 2 months.
To anybody that we sell water to, whether they're unincorporated or Darien residents.
Okay, and then that $7.75 per 1,000 gallons is sort of a blend between the changeover of rates from January to mid-year. It's kind of a balance between the lower rates in the first half of the year and the higher rates in the second half of the year.
Yeah, it just avoids increasing rates two
During the
times
year,
in a
right.
in 2 times in a year.
Correct.
Which again, it's not a right or wrong way. It just depends on how you want to do that. I certainly think it's easier to do that once for the year.
So
and
the
then-
city is doing a little catch-up, with that rate and then kind of paying it forward for,
'cause our
yes,
Darien.
correct.
Well, yeah, we know what months, and we estimate a rate that the Water Commission's going to charge us for 8 months out of the year, and then we know what it's going to be for the 4 months. So we take that expense that we're showing you, and then when we create a revenue or estimate a revenue, we do it to meet that expense. So what you're saying is correct. It's just the math works out just a little bit differently.
Right, but what I'm saying is the residents only see an annual rate change as opposed to 2.
Correct.
And
yes, in Darien,
in
yes.
Darien. That's what's reflected here.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, the only thing that's probably a little confusing is residents on our system, when they receive their bill, a portion of it is also DuPage County. So I don't know, I'm assuming the county raises the rates once a year if they do, but it's just sometimes a little confusing.
Is that DuPage County, you're talking about the sewer?
DuPage, the sewer
the
part,
sewer
yeah,
bill,
the
the
sewer
sewer
part of that bill. So the bills come out, we have an intergovernmental agreement with DuPage County, which is very good. They read the meters, and based on that, they will send out the billings for us and do all the management of the collections. But again, it is a combined bill. So if you just took your bill for a same period last month and in the current year, and you look at that difference, you'd have to kind of look at what the sewer difference was to compare really what our water difference might be.
Right. And Dan, what does the city charge for, so folks that have sprinkler systems that don't know that they can separately meter that sprinkler system, what does the city charge to put in that separate meter?
The city doesn't charge to put in that meter. First of all, the way the program works and what Alderman MacGyver is referring to, it's for residences that have sprinkler systems. What'll happen is, what it saves on is a sanitary sewer bill at the end of the year. So for residents that are interested, what you would need to do is contact the plumber, and basically between the domestic or the interior line that serves your inside of the house, you would break that off with a separate meter that goes to your irrigation system outside. The meter can either be purchased through DuPage County, through the city of Darien, and that meter would be read once a year by DuPage County Public Works. After they read that meter, the value of the water that went through there is credited towards the sanitary portion of the bill.
Right, and I have that, that's why I mentioned that, because people may not know it, and as the rates go higher, it may be worthwhile for the people that have the irrigation systems or are planning on doing so to put in that separate meter.
That's a good point, yes.
And then do you have to report that separate meter then to, I'm assuming the DuPage Water Commission, because they're aware.
No,
Well,
not the DuPage Water Commission, no.
to Darien.
We know about it.
Okay.
We do not do anything with it because all the water still goes through the main meter.
Right, but I know that I get, once a year, I get a notice from the DuPage Water Commission to provide them the meter reading on that separate
DuPage
meter.
County,
DuPage County.
not DuPage Water Commission.
Okay, so DuPage County contacts me. But so how does the county know that you have that extra meter?
Through an inspection process,
Okay.
Again.
So if anyone's interested, can they call the city to get more
Yes.
information? Okay.
Yes.
Sylvia, one question for you though. Are there some additional expenses in connection with that? Is there a
Well, I
back- is-
inherited a house that had it, so I don't,
Because I know at our office, we have one, and we have like an annual backflow inspection to make sure the water doesn't back up into the drinking water.
And that's
Does that apply to residences?
correct.
Also?
That, yes. The residents should have what's referred to as an backflow prevention program, which is something that's being administered by an outside agency this year. It's the first year we're really not really implementing it. And starting to enforce it and look at records on backflow prevention. So residents will be sent out a letter, if they haven't already, in respect to, do you have an irrigation system? Matter of fact, residents should have been sent out that letter already. Basically, it's a questionnaire that says, do you have a irrigation system? If so, what kind, and all that good stuff. And there's a little more verbiage to it in respect to what the backflow program is, what it does, and what the annual fee could possibly be.
Because I know the savings, from the sewer charges are pretty significant.
Oh, I'm sure they would be, but I know we've got this additional expense, and
Right.
I'm sure it doesn't
Yeah.
cover all the savings, but
Right.
just wanted to let people know that there is probably something else out there
Okay.
if it does apply to residential.
Brian? Oh,
There is an initial expense. The initial expense is the plumber's cost, and the permit fee is really insignificant. I believe it's a $35 permit fee. In conjunction with that, there is a yearly fee, and I'm not sure, Alderman McGyver, maybe you could expound on what the annual cost is on an RP for the backflow.
I don't
It's
remember what the number is.
$75 will probably be
Yeah.
for a residential side, whereas commercial may be a little more.
Yes, Alderman Shower, one thing I wanted to probably highlight here, or I do want to highlight, it is in a memo I distributed on the 24th when I sent out the actual numbers in the water fund budget. There was also a narrative that explained how we come up with the water rate, because it's different, obviously, than our revenues in the general fund. And one of the items I had in there was the impact the increase would have on residents. So I just want to go over this here real quickly. Currently, a resident that's using 8,000 gallons of water per month, which is, if you have a lot of kids at home, you're going to use more. Seniors may use less, so we use this as a number. That's a pretty good estimate. So if you're using 8,000 gallons of water per month, you would pay currently $102.40 plus a $5 fixed fee for a total 2-month bill of $107.40. Under the proposed rate, a resident using the same 8,000 gallons of water per month would pay $124 plus a $10 fixed fee for a total 2-month bill of $134. So that's an estimated difference put into actual rates.
any questions or issues with this number? So, we're all in agreement?
What I would do then, as the city council passes, or we present the city council the budget for approval, that same night would have the ordinance that increases the rates.
Okay.
So the budget's approved, and we'll get into the rate, the new rate.
We're gonna go to, Water Depreciation Fund. Just the highlights, fiscal year ending
Yeah, that was not in the details, that was not in the packet I handed out tonight, because that did not change from
Right.
the original distribution.
Okay.
Okay.
Just to highlight, fiscal year ending 13, we transferred from the water fund $500,000, and our ending fund balance in 2013 was $742,718. Our budget was $121,000 in costs with no income to bring 742 down to 614. Our actual cost is 131,320. So our balance was 742,718 minus 131,320 for a balance of $611,398. For FYE 15, we're only going to have $4,000 in interest income. We are looking at spending $105,000 in equipment, $296,500 in distribution, and $16,500.
Page is this, I'm sorry, as we go back to the actual budget book, I see,
I don't really have a page
Doesn't
number.
have a page.
No.
there's not on that, okay, so
Should be
it's
right
the
after
last.
the,
You guys want me to give you a second to find it?
should be right after the water department summary.
Yeah, it's in the enterprise fund tab. page one, looks like 122, so that would be 123 and 4, but it is not, yeah, it's not marked on here.
Guys, take your time. You have 14 seconds.
I'm going with.
We
the
can share.
I'm gonna go with the pages you sent out. Yeah, I've got the municipal service, yeah, the
The
water
depreciation.
water depreciation, yeah,
Oh,
I've got
good,
that.
okay. all right.
The date I have is
the date is
2/25/14, is that
Yeah,
right?
that's correct.
25, yeah, I've got those.
Everybody see it now? Right, okay. $4,000 in interest income, back to expenditures, $105,200 in equipment, $296,500 in distribution, and storage would be $16,500. We'll get in the details in a second. Those expenditures will be $418,200 minus the $611 of our balance. We're going to end up having an ending fund balance of $197,198. As we look out towards fiscal year ending 16 and 17, we're at 157,698 and 159,198. If you take a look at it, they're only in fiscal year ending 16, we have a $41,000 expenditure in distribution. So this is the big year when we buy stuff out of this fund. So as we go to the next page, some of the highlights from fiscal year 14, hydrant painting, $35,220, emergency tank repairs, $83,800, Plainfield cast main replacement, $8,000, and valve replacement, $4,000. All right, so if we go down to the request for fiscal year ending 15, we'll start with water main valves replacement, 10 locations for $70,000. Dan?
And what this program is, last year, or for this ending year, FYE 14, we had proposed $70,000. Unfortunately, we were unable to complete no more than approximately $10,000 of that project. Part of it, again, was due to weather, in addition to how we were bringing this program, call it to a commencement. This was the real first year we were doing this program, and I'll get into the problems later, but the condition, basically what we're looking at is to replace, carry that amount forward and target 10 locations to replace valves around town.
How many valves are there?
Approximately, I want to say 1,500 valves approximately.
So the 10 valves that we're talking about are probably the top 10 on the, or is it?
It's a top 10, and again, what'll happen is, our goal this year, it was to go out there and test all the valves. By testing the valves, yesterday's technology, I should say, our guys were going out there and basically counting the number of turns on a valve. In some cases, there are 100 turns, 80 turns, whatever the case is, and it's based on the size. Well, when you get down to your last several turns, anywhere from 10, 5 to 10, I'll say, it gets very difficult to where it's a two-man operation. Based on that, you got the human error of possibly losing count, or what you think may be a shutdown may not be a complete shutdown. What we've identified is when we started looking at this program earlier this year, we were going out there and we'd shut down a section of a block. Well, let's say that's 2 valves. All of a sudden, we'd open up a fire hydrant in between quickly to determine if the water was off. Well, we found out in more cases than we wanted to that we had one of the valves that we just shut down wasn't holding. So from that point, while we double-checked those valves, we went further out on the system and turned off additional valves. So now instead of just having what you would think would be 2 valves that are off, could be anywhere from 4 to 8. Next thing you know, we're shutting off blocks that we weren't trying to shut off. Again, we have water atlases, and the common mat says, okay, this section of water main is here, the valve is here, and the valve is here. So, well, it hasn't been as fluid as we wanted it to be. That's why as we get later into here, there's another piece of equipment that we're looking at that would help streamline that, but I won't get into that discussion right now. The goal of it, again, is this is a new program for us. There are some trial and errors. Again, we identified something that was a major error, and it's, I won't say it's human error, it's just due to the way the technology, the way we're working these valves.
You think you'll get the 10 this year?
I want to say yes. We feel a little more, we've identified the valves at this point. I believe we identified 4 up to date. I know there's more out there. Obviously, throughout this winter, there's been more that have been identified. In some of those cases, it just may be bonnets, bolts, bowl replacement, to refer to it simply. Then again, they may be valve replacements in full.
Is there a reason we're not projecting the same 70,000 beyond fiscal year 15, Dan?
I'd like to see what this year does, to be able to provide a better estimate to the city council. Again, this is a new program. The program we had targeted for this year, we're gonna probably only be spending close to 10,000 out of 70. And again, this is infrastructure, and we have to find the best economical way to operate these valves, so we're not out there chasing valves and shutting down water for residents that shouldn't have any effect on it at all.
What's our fiscal year 14 actual?
On the expense side, 131,320 for the total.
For the total?
Yep.
Our goal was still to come in there and try to do those valves. At this point, the way it's narrowing down, it's not gonna happen. Or it's gonna, again, we wanna be aggressive and realistic at the same time.
Anybody have a question?
Do valves have a life expectancy, or are these just breaking
Here's-
down?
Let me kind of explain what happens. Years ago, when these valves were manufactured, they were manufactured as what's referred to as a bronze disc. In other words, when you picture your gate valve at home, as you shut it, there's a brass disc in there. This is just a bigger scale of it. And if you notice, some of those, the ones in your home, for example, unless they're exercised every couple of years, minimal every couple of years, if not annually, you're going to go and turn it, and basically what's going to happen is you're going to either snap it in a closed position, or it won't seat all the way on the bottom of a valve. And the reason for that is, in our case, in the water main, it's 2 different metals, brass to cast iron, and the 2 just do not mix. So what happens is you get a crustacean that's built on there. When you think you've got it off, the valve becomes very tight, but in many cases you don't have it off because of the crud that has developed on the brass body, on the brass and or the body of the valve itself. By today's standards, what happens is they make these valves out of what's referred to as a resilient wedge valve. In other words, it's a large piece of rubber that sits into a body of the valve itself, and as the rubber basically is forced down, it expands, and you have a foolproof shut-off.
Now, does that rubber last as long as the
They've
other
been out there
things?
now for the last probably 25, 30 years, not a problem. It's a neoprene type of rubber, so
Dan, is this something we should inform the residents, maybe via direct connect periodically once a year or something? Because even my own personal one, I've never even thought of turning it on and off to exercise it.
you know, I
I
think
have enough hard enough time exercising me.
I'll double check, but I think we did send out that reminder. It hasn't been for a while, but it's a good practice. I would not recommend doing that now in the dead of winter. I would recommend doing it in the spring, summer, that when you do go and turn it off and you realize that you can't turn it back on, then when we have to go out there and now turn off your Buffalo box, that we can more, accessible, find it easier than right now with the snow and the frost. And so we don't want to dig up your front yard or driveway if we don't have to.
Any questions on that?
Amazing.
Mike, that's why your maintenance bill at home is so low. You need to up your maintenance budget at home. maybe.
But we'll guarantee anybody who has a gate valve and they haven't exercised it in more than 5 years, you will be replacing it.
All right. Plainfield Cass main replacement, 188,000.
This is actually a section of water main between the water tower located on Plainfield Road and almost to the limits of Colonial Manor, or what's referred to as our old well house there that was there. I think everyone's familiar with that at this point. That section of main, we've had some trouble with it. Our last water main break there was a pretty serious water main break to where we basically had to shut down half of Plainfield Road, half of Cass Avenue, and the water main basically split. I was personally out there on that site too. When we looked at that main, we had to replace a section of main. I want to say it was approximately 6 foot of water main. Usually a water main will split in a circle. In this case, it was a horizontal crack. Horizontal cracks don't usually happen. When looking at the main is very brittle. Again, why it's brittle, it's cast iron. It may just be due to some of the elements that are currently in the ground there. But that's one of the main lines that comes out of, in conjunction with the water tower right there. So it's a very key water main. And our thought process on that was, while DuPage County is tearing up the countryside, that it would be a good idea to replace it. And there's some cost savings there from the paving end of it, because they're going to be paving it anyway. So we do realize some cost savings. This was also all bid out by DuPage County, and there is an intergovernmental agreement that's coming forward for this project.
What's the diameter on that?
I want to say might be a 10-inch. I may be wrong. I can't recall what the diameter that was right there.
Give us an idea of how, is it going the length of the BP property all the way to
Yes.
the water tower?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Matter of fact, it's a little bit east of the Heritage Plaza, and just approximately 50, 75 feet east of the Heritage Plaza, to be more exact. And then it goes almost right at the end of Brookhaven is where it ties into our other water mains there.
Now, there's a big patch of asphalt that where you asphalt where you had to repair it last year. Wasn't it the winter of last year?
I believe it was late,
We
yeah.
had that,
Not sure if it was winter or if it was fall. I think they're all starting to blend together.
I know, I remember that work being done.
But with the water main that's currently in place there, there's part of the water main that's basically jogs over onto a piece of private property as well. So I think that was all part of the old water system, which the city had inherited from Becky. I believe it was Becky Becky's water main, or whoever owned the Brookhaven Plaza at the time, so it was their own private well system, and we took over it. So with that said, this is a very good project for the replacement of water main. So that's kind of where it's at.
Another question on that one. This water main is currently under the right-of-way, correct?
It's a combination of partially under the roadway, partially under the sidewalk, and jogs back into the roadway, even the water services that are currently in place. There's one water service that's still existing at the old BP Amico, in which case, once we do this project, we're going to remove that because there's so many utilities right at that Buffalo box. It will be a nightmare for us to even dig that currently.
Good, okay. You're really streamlining it then.
Yes.
Yeah, will it mean that ingress, egress from the gas station in Brookhaven will be hurt on that Plainfield Road side?
Limited.
Limited?
Yes.
Okay. And they'll be, are they aware of that, or they've been told that?
Yes, we did have a meeting with the Brookhaven merchants 2 weeks ago, Thursday.
No, it was just last Thursday.
Was it last week? Oh, my gosh, I'm sorry. Yeah, last week. All the
Time
meetings-
flies when you're having fun.
The meetings
yeah.
are blending all into our, yeah, we had a very cordial meeting with some of the business merchants, including John Manos, who's one of the owners. So everyone has all our phone numbers. We're going to keep them up to date, and we did mention about the water main as well.
When is this going to start?
We're waiting for the final schedule to come out. Construction schedule, we have a tentative schedule. I want to say around June, but I want to be very cautious with that because IDOT number 1 hasn't approved the schedule yet through Central Blacktop, and right now the schedule is approximately 2.5 weeks behind.
Okay, who's doing the sewer project?
I'm not sure yet. I haven't been.
Okay, you
given
don't know
no.
they haven't let that yet?
They've let the pricing, the unit pricing. I'm not sure who all the subs are. The first meeting is scheduled for next Thursday for what's referred to as the weekly meetings. So I don't even know who the water main sewer contractors are at this point. But Central Blacktop is the general.
Any questions on that? Hydrant painting, 38,500. This is part 2 of part 3, correct?
This is part 2 of 3, correct.
Can I ask about that? Because let's see, this year this fiscal year 14, we started the program, correct?
Yes.
So that would have been the first year. then we're budgeting the second, and then I have fiscal year 16 still having another number by it, so that would be 4 years.
That would be the third year,
Be the third year.
14,
The
15, and
16.
16.
Ending.
Okay.
16,500 tank washing Lamont Road.
Right, if you've noticed, Lamont Road, the tank is starting to develop a mildew on the bottom of it. In order to help keep the tank from looking unsightly, there's basically it's a bleach solution that this company comes out there, or a company will come out there and basically wash down the tank.
And then water valve trailer, GPS water excavator.
Right. And this is what I was referring to in respect to the earlier section on water valve replacements. As I explained earlier, the general practice would be to exercise water main valves once every 3 years. One of the things that we, again, had come into conflict was the way we're doing it, somewhat of an antiquated methodology, in which case we weren't being very efficient. We were shutting down water mains that we thought, or valves that we thought were off. We really had no clue whether or not they were on or off. As we opened up fire hydrants, we tried to let residents know within that block. It got to a point where we shut off a couple valves on a block, and the next thing you know, the project again would be growing by us turning off additional valves. As we turned off additional valves, unfortunately, we did have a couple complaints that basically one person was in the shower and we shut their water off without not notifying them.
Oh, boy.
Our goal on this was basically to shut down the valve, open up a fire hydrant, and within minutes, basically have the water back on so a resident would never really realize that the valves were shut off. Just again, due to the human nature of it, and not really knowing 100% whether or not a valve was off, the project kept on growing, and that's the inefficiency in respect to how we were doing things. One of the things that we looked at was our water foreman, Chris, had brought this forward. This is the vehicle that we're talking about. It's a water valve trailer. What this water valve trailer does, hooks up to the back of a truck, gives us the opportunity to take one person and to be able to start going around and exercising these valves with a machine methodology. Basically, what you do is you hook up some hydraulic hoses from this trailer, all self-contains, and you put this piece of machinery on the valve itself. You program this automatic valve turner for the size of water main or valve that it is. This machine will then, basically, the operator will assist, and the machine will count down the number of turns that a valve will take. Once it gets down to, say, 4 turns left, 5 turns, whatever the case is, it'll torque itself down so it doesn't basically tear the valve apart. As it closes it down, the number of turns are counted, and we then can determine this is a good valve. Again, takes the guesswork and the human error out of the other methodology. The other thing we looked at was, well, what does this cost if we were to outsource it? So let's say we do have 1,500 valves, and we do have a company with similar equipment that comes in to do this. The cost is approximately $45 per valve, which comes out to a program cost of $67,500. Now, based on this trailer itself, purchasing on a cost of $105,200 and doing a cost of every 3 years to have an outside source come in at $67,500, and based on the fact that this trailer would last approximately 15 years, it would take 5 cycles at $67,500 over the course of 15 years at a cost of approximately $338,000. So during a 15-year lifespan of the vehicle, we would also outsource this at almost 3 trailers. Now, what else this trailer does has what's referred to as a GPS. we've been looking for to move into the modern technology by starting to GPS things. Prime example again is this winter. When we have water main breaks, we try to locate a valve. Well, I think we all know trying to find your mailbox this year, yet alone a valve in the snow, is somewhat cumbersome. What this will do is this trailer will allow us to GPS to coordinate the units. And a sidebar on that is that this GPS will also have the ability to do our street lights, to do fire hydrants, buffalo boxes. Again, to be able to have this machinery is additional projects that could be implemented at no additional cost later on. Now, with this GPS software and hardware, it's an additional $23,000. So even if we had the vendor come in and provide us this cost of $67,500 per year, there would be an initial cost of $23,000 for the hardware, software, for the GPS system. Otherwise, the GPS coordinates are useless to us. With that said, the overall cost for outsourcing would be slightly more, $360,000 from $337,000 to $338,000 over the course of 15 years. If we were to take our cost, let's say we also have a $1,000 maintenance cost on this trailer for whatever reason to plug that in, and let's say that this trailer only lasted us 12 years, this trailer would cost us approximately $9,800 per year for 12 years. If we were to extend the life of this trailer to 15 years, and again with a maintenance cost of $1,000, we would be at $8,000 per year. So that's how we looked at some of the return on investment for a program that will increase efficiency, reduce labor to a point too, and again, I think it's an efficient operation. Plus, it'll be able to expand on other items moving forward into the GPS world. Thank you.
I've got a question. Who else uses this? Have you had any references on this?
The references we've had, well, the references were from private companies. No one else has this at this point. One of our goals.
Yeah, no other municipality.
Correct, not an immediate area. There may be some further out. Our research was basically contained to within the adjacent municipalities, and the reason for that was, if there is an opportunity to take our trailer and utilize it with other municipalities, there could be some additional cost benefits and or additional returns on the investments. Again, that's very premature, and I don't want to promise the city council that, but I just wanted to bring that out to your attention.
Maybe we could do the city of Chicago's valves and get a break on water, huh?
There you go. It's going to take more than one person.
Dan, one of the things when comparing if other communities have it, you don't know the size of their departments compared to ours. Obviously, if a department has 4 or 5 extra people, they might not have this machine because they have it in labor somewhere. So we would have to, as part of that comparison, we would really just see how many employees they have, because it sounds like something like this does help keep our employee count down.
Correct.
Sounds like it.
Definitely. I mean, I could just, again, our goal this year, and unfortunately we weren't able to accomplish it just due to how we had to do it.
Dan, can you explain a little bit more about the GPS system? Because I can understand trying to locate a valve, but not necessarily what you were talking about, which is streetlights and implementing it for other things.
Right. The computer software is it is basically a standalone product. That standalone product with some type of handheld device, you will be able to go to that streetlight, for example. Let's call it streetlight number 42 at such and such address. Will now be cataloged into a separate book. Currently, the catalog we have is very antiquated at best, and basically what it is a general map with dots on it. Okay, unless a resident calls in and says, our light is out, we need to ask them all their information. Okay, what's the address, what corner, whatever the case is. By being able to have a system such in place that we can start cataloging our light poles. And, okay, number 42, well, 42 is out, and, you know, somehow the pole itself would be cataloged, and then number 42 would refer to an address, a coordinate. In some cases, there is no address fronting a street light, so now you use coordinates as, whatever the case is, Beller and X Street, and so many feet from the curb and gutter, et cetera, et cetera. Does that make sense?
But this would have to be manually done. We'd have to have an employee go to every street light.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the
And,
initial.
and every valve is what you were inputting also.
Correct, correct. And that will be the initial, whereas later on, once you do this, once it's all cataloged, it's all completed. Again, this can expand to street lights, to storm source, especially storm source structures. I mean, this winter, again, was a classic example of that. Where's the inlet? I know it was here during the summer, now to try to find it. Here's an excellent source right there.
So Dan, but the water part of this is that, again, your plan would be to go to hit all the water valves anyway. So that won't be any additional time, but you're saying the street lights and things outside of the valves, inventorying the valves would take an extra person, an extra time.
Correct. That'd be, you know, whether it's 1 year out, 2 years out. Again, that's one of the goals that I had looked at this as well.
What's the labor piece of cataloging all this equipment that you want to catalog?
It's de minimis. I mean, just to
Oh,
catalog.
hey, that's the first time today.
What's that?
I used to count how many times he'd say de minimis during the budget meetings.
Well, you know, and what I mean by that is the software is all there. So it's a matter of going out there, and once it's entered, it's downloaded, it's there. Now you take that, whether it's that piece of paper, and you form a computer a program for it for street lights, street light locations. Paper copies could be made, maps could be implemented from that.
And Alderman, you're asking really above and beyond.
Yeah,
the
labor
visit,
cost.
Well, where's,
above
yeah,
and beyond the visit.
there's
to their-
software, but the data has to get collected. Who's collecting the data?
The guys in the field. It's very user-friendly.
So Dan,
Is
while
it
they're
a
at,
scanner? They sit there and,
It's I'm sorry, it's some type of handheld unit.
it's a handheld unit.
Right, and
They're-
the training is provided on this handheld
Okay.
unit. From the handheld unit, and again, I don't know all the nuts and bolts exactly, but the general knowledge that I do know of is basically it's a handheld device that transfers back to a satellite. From the satellite goes back to the computer with the coordinates.
Don't they have an app for that?
Yeah.
They may.
And I think
I'm
what.
talking to my
what
son
I-
about
I
that.
think what she's referring to, will not be done in overtime. This will be
Oh.
done
Right.
during a normal course of workday.
I'm sorry, yeah.
So you're going to come up with some kind of a system for, I don't know, like you're going to come up with a numbering system for streetlights, for example.
We're going to start with the valves. I
Or the
think,
valves.
yeah.
Right.
Let's say the valves. You're going to start numbering the valves, whatever. And someone's going to physically walk up. Here's the valve. I've got my handheld device. Now these are the coordinates. Valve number 1 is now at this coordinate. Bing, it's in the system.
correct.
Or bing, bing.
Basically, yes, yes.
Has to bounce off that satellite.
your plan is you're going to be at all of those valves, whether you had this equipment or not. So this
Correct.
is now that you're at the valves. That's why it makes sense to have this equipment, because it's not generating additional time. You know, a touchpad type of thing is really instantaneous, and they're
Okay.
probably saving time also while they're exercising it.
Right.
Right. So that's great. So now you've cataloged all everything we have, whether it's valves, street lights, hydrants, whatever the case may be. Now, how does that help us in a situation? I mean, is there going to be a physical number? A resident calls in and says, "Hey, street light number 42 is out."
Well, again.
Well, you know what I mean. I
And
mean,
use
how
the
is that gonna-
example
Right.
tonight.
Doesn't
You
help
had
them,
you had a
helps
valve
you.
break.
Right,
Use
I
that
don't wanna-
example.
That's exactly. I don't want to break away into the streetlight portion of it. You know, specifically right now, I'm concentrating on the water main line valves. This evening, we've got an example where we think there was a water main break behind our former Alderman John Podorowski's house. Alderman Kenny has been jinxing him all along.
I'm having a bad week.
But with that said, they went to go turn off one of the valves. It started leaking. So now we have a leak on this valve that was just caused by us. By having this machine, for example, and let's say we got through this program, we would have identified this valve during that 3-year cycle, I'll refer to it as a bad valve, because something at that point would have started leaking at the same, it would have just started leaking, period. Now, again, this valve, I don't have enough detail on it this evening, but that's just a down and dirty example. It still may be bolts, but whatever the case, the valve would still be inspected.
But the point is, Dan, once you had it, and Sylvia asked how it would help because you would know a water main break is in the area. You'd know you'd have to go find the valve. Right now, you probably have to march around the house in an area. This would tell you,
The
go right
exact
to this.
GPS
And,
location?
right, and in this case, the valve was underwater because there was so much water engulfed within the area
Okay.
that they couldn't
It was
just
like
find the valve.
It was like a lake.
And I'm sorry,
Okay.
Alderman Kenny was out there this evening, so
So it seems like he's always at the scene of the crime. Is that around here?
So,
But
Inspector Clouseau here.
jinx.
Dude, you're
No more crime. We passed a crime-free ordinance. Crime, so we're fine.
so then taking it to the next level, then is this database then going to create something like you have your ditch program, you have your street program, you have your curb program. You're going to have a water main. Then you're going to start cataloging their ages when they're replaced. Is this part of that, or do we do that
Yes.
already
No.
somehow?
currently we don't do it.
And when they're tested, more importantly.
Exactly,
So you'll
yeah.
know this
Okay.
valve was tested 2 years
Okay.
ago or 4 years ago, and it needs to be on that 3-year cycle.
And don't get me wrong, years ago they did have, I'll call it a valve turning program, I should say internal valve turning program, where the guys were going out there and turning the valves. Consider it what you want. To me, that's not a foolproof system. Especially, human error is going to happen, and what you think is, especially on these big valves, these are large valves. It's not, in some cases it's 2 guys on a valve, especially turning down the last 4 to 10 turns.
So I'm only focusing on this $22,000, I guess, 22 plus the 7, so roughly $30,000 expenditure for the software and the receiver and so forth. So you're saying that other municipalities don't have anything like this? I mean, I'd be kind of surprised that like a Downers Grove or a Naperville or something.
And again, the immediate research we did was right around, was around us, Downers Grove, and again, based on manpower, how they do it, do they contract it out, whatever the case is. I can tell you that, if this item is accepted preliminarily into the budget tonight, staff will do the research and also provide you with additional municipalities that do have this type of machinery.
It's the machinery, and then there's the recording devices, and then the record keeping, I guess. I mean, it's kind of like the police department. It's what are the best practices? We don't want to be necessarily the first ones out, but what are other municipalities doing in this regard?
Well, some are contracting out, as you
Right.
mentioned.
Okay, so
Right.
some are
It's for the
outsourced.
tracking.
For either or, for the tracking, a lot of municipalities do have the GPS systems in place already. Downers Grove, for example, has a GPS system, whether or not they're specifically using it for this application, I couldn't answer that question for you. Again, we don't even have anything to get started on a GPS system. We've been trying adamantly to coordinate efforts with DuPage County for the last 2-3 years, and that just hasn't come to fruition.
And this company can't provide, the company that's giving you this information can't provide like local references of anyone who's doing that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
We just haven't gotten that
I
far
haven't gotten
yet.
that far.
Oh.
Okay. All right.
Michael?
That's
I guess just as a follow-up regarding the software and everything, Dan, whenever I buy software, I know every year there's usually annual maintenance or update costs and everything. Do you have any idea what those might entail, or are there any?
That's why I put in there the maintenance cost per year for the trailer and software would be approximately $1,000. But with that, again, with that, on my ROI, the way I looked at it, we would do further research. Again, every software does have some type of upgrades. I don't picture them being more than $150 per year, let's say. I think that's reasonable. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I assume to be reasonable at this point.
Is this comparable to the equipment that we used if it was outsourced?
Yes, yes.
All right, so how does everybody feel about this?
Well, I think we need more research on it too, before, this is purchased, but
Research meaning references?
Yeah,
References.
references, any other choices, options out there for another utility that would provide us the tracking?
Well, as Dan mentioned, all of that would come back to the Municipal Services
Right.
Committee prior to the council again for formal approval.
And I'm sorry, just to understand your question, you're talking about a standalone unit for the GPS, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, any other,
What I didn't want to start doing was commingling product A and product B. Why, again, specifications for this would be that one has to talk to the other. What I don't want to do is all of a sudden, let's say we purchase this, and then we purchase the computer, next thing you know is that we have some type of compatibility problem.
right, right.
So that's why it was all taken as a lump sum item.
Anybody else?
Just, when we buy equipment like this, what kind of warranties, what kind of insurance? Because we're looking at hopefully 12 to 15 years out, so we can get a return back on it. But let's suppose in year 3, something blows up on it or gets stolen. I mean, I would hate to see that happen, but what's our, safe? Yeah, we don't have crime in Darien. What's our safeguards on that?
Well, if it's stolen, we have insurance,
Insurance,
like any homeowner would have insurance.
Okay.
In terms of the maintenance or type of things on there,
Warranties
whatever
on
the
there.
warranty.
Yeah.
Warranties usually are about a year, yes, can you buy extended warranties for some of the electronic equipment? I'm sure you can. Again, I couldn't answer that question for you this evening. If we were to go out to bid, we would incorporate certain language into the bid specifications, as we've done in the past, that some type of maybe a 5-year maintenance agreement would be included with the equipment or upgrades. Yes, we're paying for it, but it's all bid out then at the same time.
I wouldn't answer the question, but if we're expecting it to go so far along in order to get our money back, that's why I was concerned.
The big thing for me, the only question that I have, and I actually like the idea, the big thing is just the backup system. If we put all this information in and obviously there's a lot of front-end manpower, but once we put all that information in, we want to make sure if that anything happens to that truck, we have a backup system that we, gets hit and, blows up or anything like that we can get, access to that info.
And those are all things that we would look at, what happens to the backup information? You would think by today's technology that we could back it up onto our city server. Again, I want to be careful as I say that. I don't know what the requirements are for some of the GPS things, or it's a matter of putting out what they refer to as a thumb drive, for example. But those are all the items that we would definitely, look at and have backup information. Yes, that's something very critical.
Is the truck and the GPS 2 different companies that you're looking at?
I'm sorry?
Purchasing the truck and the GPS system, are they 2 separate companies, or
No.
are they're intertwined?
Yeah, they're intertwined, yes.
Any other questions? Anybody have an issue with it?
It's a big nut. I mean,
I'm sorry?
it's a big nut.
Yeah.
I mean, a big number.
Yeah.
I guess I don't have an issue keeping it in the budget and then getting more information as it moves through.
I just keep thinking, as water goes up more and more, and if we have the location of these valves where we can turn them off, 10 minutes of saving, how many gallons that are flowing, how much does that save out? You're never going to be able to quantify that,
Well,
but,
You'll have a good idea, actually, I
So-
think this year,
Yeah.
of how much.
so.
The one question about fire hydrants, Dan, that did come up this year, and kind of just a little bit off topic on the budgets, is the city does not provide any kind of staking before the winter hits, correct? So when they get buried under the piles of snow, you're kind of counting on residents to locate those fire hydrants?
Some of the answer is yes. If they're totally buried, then yes, we're all guessing at it. We
I
have,
mean, I've seen other municipalities that, put up some
Oh, with
kind
the
of a
markers,
flag,
right.
a marker.
the markers are short-lived. The markers that were out there, somewhat safety related. You have to be careful what you put up there. Children specifically like to play around those things, and they're not getting hurt on them. But they're fairly expensive too. I know we looked at it a couple years ago, and I want to say the cost was closer to $50,000, if I'm not mistaken, to equip all our fire hydrants with these markers.
I mean, is it seasonal, or, I mean, is it,
It's not worth someone going out there in October, November, whatever the case is, putting them on, and then in, March, April, taking them back off, and or, they become very cumbersome during hydrant flushing. Most of these are usually put in on a bolt through what's referred to as the bonnet. After a while, the bolts tend to rust. They get frozen on there.
Yeah, I was just concerned that I definitely know that there were buried hydrants in the subdivision.
Right, and I think the department did a very good job about getting used out there and even letting residents know, if you can't do it, please give us a call. We'll come out there right away. And the fire departments, Tri-State and Darien Woodridge, we reached out to them as well, and they were very cordial in going out to all the various neighborhoods and opening up. Did we get to all of them? Probably not.
So
Did
if
we
you
get-
had this GPS system that locked a hydrant to an address, could you send the resident each, on a,
Sure.
a notice then and say, this winter, could you please be sure that your hydrant is free and clear, and if you can't, contact the city for assistance?
Yes, yes.
Because I find that to be a major safety, concern.
And identifying and cataloging fire hydrants is another great example, just from a simple reason. There's fire hydrants out there that are referred to as the Traverse City fire hydrants. Well, Traverse City hydrants are no longer manufactured. Parts are getting cumbersome at best to get some of the parts. I won't say all the parts, but some of the parts. So in that case, we have to replace hydrants. By cataloging these fire hydrants and GPS them, whatever the case is, you're given the opportunity to say, okay, we have X amount of Traverse City. We should start looking at this as another program. So just keeping the infrastructure in place for years to come and being proactive versus then I'll refer to it as reactive.
How feasible would it be to mark the streets in some manner that are adjacent to the hydrant?
Not a problem. But, again, it's all going to wear off.
We pave
Well,
over, pave over 'em.
I mean, you have white lines and yellow lines and paving on the street, and they wear up time after time. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, and it's, again, it's something we could also do. Neighborhoods,
Paint the street where the
Or
hydrant
the
is.
curb, like,
Just at the curb, just some kind of marking.
people are.
the curb I'd be very cautious in doing, because the curb, usually when there's that much snow, you're not
Don't
going to see the
I
curb.
mean, I've got a hydrant right on the corner of my house, and if the street was painted, you'd never see the street. But we haven't seen 3 feet of the street on that side of my house until recently, till it started melting.
You won't see it after tonight, I guess, is
I
what
won't
I
see it
heard.
after tonight.
If you would consider anything, what I would consider is putting what they refer to as markers that are ground into the center of the road.
I
Usually
think
they're
if you have this
blue.
GPS system and you proactively contact residents just to alert them, say, during the winter months, please be aware that, if your hydrant gets covered, please contact the city. I think that's a proactive measure.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Oh.
think that the fire department would know all their markings.
Absolutely not. The fire departments refer back to municipalities, as it's the municipality's responsibility for the maintenance and location of fire hydrants. Even in brand
Flushing
new,
and everything.
even in brand new subdivisions, the city is required to put in fire hydrants at 250-foot intervals, for example. And we enforce that, not the fire
But
department.
I mean, how do they know where to go then? They have some kind of list.
When they drive
right?
around all day.
Anything else from this area or not? Okay, we have MFT and then 3 small items, so let's just take a 5-minute break real quick. I want to get this hopefully done tonight.
I don't think it's going to be as bad as they say it is, though. I really don't.
One can only hope. When I heard the news, it actually made me depressed.
My mother always liked
And I've been able to handle this winter pretty good, but yeah, just the thought of possibly 2 to 8 more inches.
Well, what's his name, Jerry Taft, he said it's interesting because 2 of the 3 worst snowstorms we've had occurred in March. Not this year, but I mean in past years.
In past years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you have 56 degrees and then the following day you have 3 to 5 inches of snow.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, it's a bit much.
Getting tired of shoveling out.
I'm getting tired. That's
So
right.
we're
There's
still
no
a
doubt
while
about
away.
that.
Some guy estimated that he shoveled so many
Is that
tons
for
of
Darien,
snow this
Sylvia?
year.
Yeah, I
Because
had
if-
Darien in here.
This is in the
on
They're
Tribune
watching the
today.
weather earlier.
This
They
guy
really
said
had the
he
bands are
found
kinda
out
tight
what the
in terms of where it's
ratio
gonna
Well,
hit
it
on
goes
that
from
water
water.
to
80% at midnight
snow
down
was
to,
and the weight
and then it goes
and
down a little
the
bit, but 7 a.m. it's
exact
70%
square footage of
snow.
his
It's just- I
driveway
don't
and
have a
sidewalk And he estimated so many
estimated
he shoveled so
Yeah.
many tons of,
Yeah.
Oh,
like an
okay.
hourly
That's
of
fun.
what's
He's still
gonna
alive,
happen.
that's pretty
and he's
fast.
still alive.
I heard 8. I heard we can get 8.
Well, I
when it's
shoveled
all
out,
said and
you know,
done.
like, speaking of fire hydrants, I shoveled out my fire hydrants this year.
Don't you,
2 inches worth
do,
of,
do you have a snow blower?
South of I-80.
Can that
Snow
be,
blower broke this winter.
oh my gosh, what
Yeah,
bad
so
luck,
what
huh?
I did is I contracted this guy, Jim Hobbs, who's a retired Darien Woodridge fireman. And for $35 he does,
That's pretty
he does
big.
my
He
driveway.
comes on
Yeah,
a
it
truck with
is,
a
but
truck?
I did I did it until the end of December, but from January on I didn't.
Huh? Yes. Yeah, I called him.
Okay.
Yeah, January on I've had him.
Yeah.
I thought about buying a new snowblower, but middle of January you don't want to buy a new snowblower.
Straight.
You never know.
Here's the camera off.
Why?
I'm just full fast.
You on your
Are we
phone?
live or not? Huh?
No.
Are we live or not?
You know, Sylvia, part of the problem is
Oh, really?
I dug
Okay.
out 4 storm sewers and I've dug them out twice.
Okay.
Nobody else in my block digs out their storm
No.
sewers.
Okay, all right.
And I dug out
Right,
my
so-
fire hydrant.
Well, and there's just
Okay.
people that just don't,
Okay,
aren't aware of.
I didn't look at the
you know,
capital
Well, and some people
projects fund. You
can't.
were saying about
People can't,
$70,000
yeah,
worth of
some
savings
people
there?
are just not aware of,
If you compared the two, so I would
like,
trans-
having
I
a
would,
responsibility of
just
I
doing.
mean, I wonder if Joe knows that in John's, his ward, John used to go around
The
doing
one
that.
person
He'd dig out people's storm sewers for him and get their electricity turned back on and run power cords across the street to
Sure,
their
I'll-
house.
Whatever you do, don't dance
Yeah,
with it,
nice.
that's all I'm saying.
When I see the alderman in Ward 5 doing it, then I'll do it.
Are we live or not?
Let me see here.
I don't know, Paul. Was that, yeah.
You're my
he
leader.
hopes not, so
Mute my phone.
sometimes it's easier to leave that running
Yeah, I know.
than turn it off and on.
No.
Okay.
I feel like Kathy, though. When I heard the news, I was depressed today, too. And then this jet thing is crazy.
What?
This Malaysian jet that they can't find.
Talk about mixed information.
Forgot what.
I mean, that's depressing,
Hey,
too.
thanks
to listen
everybody
to-
for your well wishes. Thank you.
That's depressing.
What's that?
Thanks for all your well wishes
What do
from over the weekend.
I know, that's
Sunday
absolutely
afternoon.
crazy. And the thing was,
A very
They can't even
chagrined,
find the
a very
ping
chagrined
on the
guy,
black
huh?
box.
no, they can't.
It's more than that.
I bet he's in the doghouse with a certain wife.
Something's not stirring the Kool-Aid on that one.
That's an understatement.
First thing all the husbands said. Poor guy's in trouble.
They're not gonna
Oh, no, don't worry, it has nothing to do with it.
Joe, yeah, I know you were you were feeling
Well,
bad
that's the
about
whole
that.
thing.
Don't, and I told you that.
Oh, I know.
You're looking at what
still,
size of Texas or something like that, or twice?
I liked your idea about the edible arrangements gift to John Podorowski.
He's good, it should be personally delivered, in my opinion.
Did I tell you, I was just walking, right before it all went down, I asked John, I go, how am I doing? He's like, you're doing good. I go, would you tell me the truth, or would you tell me if I was doing bad? He goes, no, I would tell you. I'm like, that's good, thanks, John. As I'm walking out the door, walks up to me, goes, -1.
Kathy said she saw John dancing with Janine Ruffalo, and Janine wasn't able to hold him. She passed him off over to
Me.
you. And Kathy says, and I looked at these two guys and I thought, something's gonna happen here.
Oh, yeah.
And next thing you know, he went down.
Joe said, screw it, I'm gonna trip him.
Yeah, let's just say you guys aren't going like on Dancing with the Stars anytime soon. Dancing and Seeing Stars,
that's-
maybe, I don't know.
Seeing stars,
why-
yeah.
That's why I sing.
John
Okay.
saw stars, yeah.
Seeing stars. Anytime, Ted.
We should bring him to the city council meeting.
I think he's probably moving out right now as we speak.
Okay, we're gonna start back up. Do we need time for the,
No, I didn't. say
Cameraman,
that.
are we all
No,
set?
I told him I'm bringing it up.
Make it fast, I have to pick up a prescription by 9.
For you or for him?
He's got a major
know.
headache.
oh, man.
Okay.
Here, take the full bottle.
Man.
We're good? Okay. Motor fuel tax budget, MFT. FYE 14 budget was 519,000. Our MFT allotment came in at 531,164. We also got a bonus this year of 102,000. Was that, what exactly was that for? I've been trying to figure that out.
200, 300.
part of a 3-year program, Mike, but go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's the other.
Yeah, the state has a 3-year program, but there's no guarantees they're going to actually appropriate the funds. So when it comes, we're sort of, okay, money from heaven, we'll take it.
Gotcha.
It has one more year theoretically to run, so if we're fortunate enough, we should get another similar amount next year.
Are you talking about the miscellaneous income?
Yes.
Okay.
Interest income was 2,000. Our budget for MFT was 519,000, and we actually came in at 635,164.
Oh, geez, I can, you went out for a cigarette? Jeez, I can smell it all the way over here.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Ted.
That's all right. Operating salary and benefits 300,000, same. Road material 35,000. Here's the big one. Salt, we budgeted 170,000 for. We're going to be coming in at 230,000, $60,000 extra. Before I come back and ask a question on this, let's just go down the rest of the numbers. 15,000 for supplies. Our subtotal in this area was 520,000, which we were budgeted, but we actually came in at 580,000. Again, $60,000 extra for salt. So go down to contractual, 8,500 for pavement striping. That was standard across the board. And then $130,000 for trees, for tree removals. I'm just remembering, how many trees were that for the EAB?
I want to say it was 300.
300 trees? Okay.
335.
335? Okay. 335 trees, EAB, that we ended up eliminating. That entire section, we budgeted 8,500 and actually came in at 138,500. Our ending fund balance for fiscal year 13 was 292,709. Now, we were supposed to be short about $9,000 out of this, but we ended up being short 83,751. Again, 130,000 was for the trees, and also an extra 60,000 for salt, but again, we got 102,000 for a bonus. So our ending fund balance is going to be at 208,958. As we go out to 15 through the road, a little bit of feedback. As we go out through 15, 16, and 17, our total end balances will be 134,748. We're going to be running a shortage of 74,000 for next year. For fiscal year ending 16, we're going to be running a shortage of 58,625, which will bring our balance down to 76. And then for fiscal year 17, we'll be running a shortage of 59,262 for a balance of 16,861. Going back to MFT, back up to salt, we're at 60,000. Again, we budgeted 170, came in at 230. We're requesting 224,400. Any idea on the tonnage on that?
Approximately, one of the theories on it was up to 4,200 tons. Currently, as a brief summary, what we're trying to do is to renegotiate with our vendor, North American Salt. Please recall that the state purchase price this year was approximately 50 to 60, and we were paying, I want to say close to
68.40.
68.40, right?
68.40.
So obviously, we're trying to negotiate with North American. Meanwhile, while we're trying to negotiate with North American, we also went back to the Department of Transportation to make sure we have the right to be able to negotiate the contract, so we're not in violation of any of IDOT's rules using MFT funds. We still have not gotten an answer on that. Meanwhile, in the event that IDOT tells us no, what we're going to do is we're going to hop on the state purchase this year and try to do the state purchase this year if we could try to get a better gauge of what we think the salt is going to be. It's very difficult. It's a commodity. I think everyone understands that.
Dan, weren't other municipalities, they might have been paying 55 or 60 per ton, but then when they were asking for that, they went over that, their allotment, they were paid sometimes double that.
Correct.
$100
Triple.
or triple that. So if we went back to the state again, wouldn't we be in that same ballpark?
Well, what I'm looking at is our store, right now, we have the opportunity to take close to 3,000 tons immediately.
Yeah.
Our average storm, our average year, we use approximately 1,700. Per the state contract, we would be required to take 80%. We have two options, either 100% or 80%. So if we take 80% of 4,200, roughly we're at 3,100. I'm sorry, not four. A little bit under 30. for 3,900 tons approximately. So with 3,900 tons that we would be obligated to take, I feel pretty comfortable that we will at least we'll take that allotment based on our yearly usage, if that makes sense there.
You think all the rates are gonna go up next year?
It's hard to say. Well, I'm trying to do additional research. I'm really not coming up with any good answers to what we're seeing yet. I'm hoping that North American's going to come back and say, hey, we could reduce it down to this. That'll be a good indicator, first of all, and then provided that the Illinois Department of Transportation allows us to do this, we'll bring that back to the City Council then as part of the 3-year contract that we have in place. Because next year's pricing for salt is at $72.60 proposed from our vendor on our 3-year option contract.
And salt's our only option.
Yes.
Just because 355 was putting down sand during the last snowstorm.
If they're putting down sand and they're out of salt.
Yeah.
I saw that they used beet juice last year because the the asphalt was definitely pink.
Correct. And with the beet juice, again, these are products all we researched, including calcium chloride. When we looked at the cost of equipment, was it worth it? Beet juice, in our opinion, for our city here, I don't think it's worth it. And the reason for that is beet juice basically saves you time before you have to come in and start salting. Well, it's great for maybe DuPage County. They use it, maybe even Downers Grove. I know Downers Grove has experimented with a couple different types of products. And from what I saw, one of the test strips was on Fairview. In my opinion, from what I've observed, I really saw no benefit to it.
Is sand cheaper?
Is sand cheaper? Oh, yeah, but the sand becomes, you save sand for your last resort because it becomes a mess, not only for tracking, people tracking it in their homes, driveways, garages, in their homes, as well as the storm sewers. Then it just becomes, something that we don't want to really start putting into the storm sewers, especially with all the NPDES rules and the stormwater.
But salt's corrosive as well. I mean, salt has its environmental impact as well.
Well, it does. I notice it's more or less a silent issue through the DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance. It's an accepted method of treatment for roads.
I felt really good when Andy Anderson, the Downers Grove Township Highway Commissioner, on Saturday asked me if we were using beet juice, and I was able to say, nope, salt.
I'm just going to throw one idea out there. What about the possibility of all these barges that have been frozen on, the canals that can't get through, and now all of a sudden demand is going to drop off because the season's ending? Any chance of us getting those at a really reduced price?
That's why I'm looking at, we have an option in our contract referred to as summer pricing, and that's why I'm hoping that the opportunity with North American comes back and says, hey, here's what we'll look at for you guys. Again, we have some great opportunities. I do not have the answers yet. Based on the research that's out there, there's nothing really there yet.
You quoted a price that North American Salt is giving us right now. What was that price?
$72.60 per ton.
Okay.
Going forward.
Not this going forward
This
for
year
next
was
year's budget.
Yeah, this year was 68.40.
Okay. So that's a great idea to investigate whether they'll have a summer price on what's left.
I mean, with having the salt shed, great idea, by the way.
Probably should have built 2 of them and then sold it to other municipalities.
If that's a recommendation,
They'll love it.
Anyway, any questions from this area? Okay, special service area number 1 fund budget. This is Terra Hill. Fiscal year ending 14 budget, $5,000 is our revenue. That's what we actually got. Total costs, we budgeted $8,400 and we actually only spent $4,200. Personal maintenance, we did not spend anything in, and contingency, we did not spend anything in. Our ending fund balance was budgeted at $575. We actually came in at $97.32. For next year, fiscal year ending 15, again $5,000 in property taxes that Terra Hill pays directly. Professional services is $5,000. Maintenance contract $1,000, and contingency is $2,500. So we'd be short 3,500 and we'd bring it down to 6232. The big question is, do we do a burn this year?
Well, we didn't do the burn in fall. We have a burn scheduled for April.
So wait, is that budget, this in this year's budget?
Correct.
So what's the increase in professional services and contingency?
3,200, it'll be minus 3,200, so we'll have, to-date total expenditures, 42, 32, approximately $3,200 of what our expenses will be.
Right, but what is that increase for?
Increase, I'm sorry, where's the increase?
You're going to
Professional
$5,000?
services. Yeah.
Well, that's the,
What's
that's
the
the annual
plan, Dan?
assessment.
No, it's also on the, also on the professional services. The
Yes.
the professional services are going from 3,200 to 5,000.
5,000, and
next
then the
several years.
contingency from 0 to 2,500.
Dan, I think we combined.
Yeah, we
last year.
combined
It
it,
was
something-
broken out into 2 services for Burke, and we put it into the
Right.
one number.
So that one number should be reduced there for next year.
Well, I'm not sure if the overall budget from last year to this year has changed. That's what I'm saying.
Right, and that's what I'm looking at right now. We'll have to double check that, but, 'cause last year, 8,400, 42.
I guess the question when we go, I'm sorry.
We'll have to double check that.
When we go to FYE 17, after it's all done, we're gonna be at $232. What are we gonna have to do going forward? I know it's 3 years out, basically, but are we gonna have to raise that for that section or not?
It all depends how much maintenance is required, number one. Several years ago, we did quite a bit of improvements there, to where the improvements that we identified have saved basically that $2,000 for the last couple of years.
So
And the other-
every year, Dan, in that budget, Burke gives us a 3-year plan. We budget accordingly. And whatever we collect above and beyond that plan, we put in there as contingency, really for stormwater, because we do not know when that's going to come up.
Correct.
Do they, because this is special services area, can we increase the property tax rate on the residents based on, this number
For-
going down?
For the
Yeah.
can we increase or decrease?
Can you increase if you're running out of money?
Yes.
Okay.
How many
We match the expenses to the revenue,
Yeah.
so absent some, really big stormwater project, but I would have to check the original special service ordinance.
Mhm.
I believe it says we can levy a tax to take care of the wetland maintenance and the stormwater, but we would actually have to go back and look at that. We haven't looked at it for increasing it because we've been able to live within
Right.
either the 5,000 or a couple years when there was a balance, but, so we'll have to check the ordinance.
Well, I'm talking, when Ted's referring to getting out to 17, where your fund balance is $232.
Right.
Yeah, and we do plan it like that, so that fund balance typically should run lower, and then the following year, we know every year we'll get 5, but
Okay.
going out past that, again, we'll have to look at that special service ordinance.
Is that just for Terra Hill, or does that include Terra Hill North?
Both of them.
Both of them?
There's a
Okay.
legal description on the tax levy document, and Dan seems to know that. I didn't recall without
There's
looking.
there's 3 detention areas that require burns, so 3, the one on North should be also included in there as well,
Any idea on the houses that are in that area?
as far as,
Total numbers?
oh, no, I'm just,
Any questions about this area? Nope. Hi, Sylvia. Debt Fund Bond Series 7B fiscal year ending 2015. If you take a look at the numbers, this will be retired after fiscal year ending 18. And again, that's 497,500 is our request for next year. 498,400 was our budget. Spending 498,775. It's only dropping by about 1,000, but again, the point is it's going to be retired by FYE 18. Any questions on that? Then we move into, we got one other item, and the mayor has something. We're going to move into a memo that we got from the Chamber of Commerce.
Very nice one.
Okay.
Oh, is this on the fest?
Yeah.
On our reimbursement.
Correct. Chamber of Commerce is basically requesting that,
Everybody have that? It was a handout.
This is a, goes
If
back,
not, I happen to have another extra copy
I
here.
think I
Anybody
have
can
it.
use it.
I've got it.
right here, from March 4th.
correct. Basically, they want to lower the contribution that they give back to the city for the police once the total amount goes above 25,000. Correct, from what I remember?
Did you include the previous
There's a-
setup?
There's an example in there of what we would have received, what we'd received this year and what we would have received if the change, their changed request was implemented. I think it was about $3,000 difference.
Because it's 10% up to 25,000, which is 2,500, and then from 2,500 to 25,000 to 30,000 is an increase of, I think, it's up to 7,000 now, and then they want to lower it to 4,500, correct?
I'm sorry, Ted.
That's what it would
Yeah.
have been this year.
So,
Yeah.
And again, that's a sliding scale. We have never hit, or they have never hit a profit margin, giving us, the larger reimbursement as they have now. But I know historically, when we, probably back in 2008, the city council was, really had some hard discussions about contributing any of the, our expenses of about $20,000 to the fest. And so, in summary, there was an arrangement made to where, the chamber made a certain amount of money. If they were to make more, we could help recoup more of our costs. And again, this is the first year where it worked out where we got 6,500 or 7,000.
Yeah, I thought it was 7,000 we got returned this year.
Yeah.
This had to be
Right.
their best year.
Yeah, again, just for historical perspective, pretty much what Brian said. Prior to 2008, they would not necessarily reimburse us anything at all. It was, if they made some money, they'd maybe
Throw
throw
some.
$1,000, maybe $1,500 our way. Things got really tough, and we were spending approximately, I believe it was in the range of $18,000 to $20,000 per year with police overtime and the other things that we were
Barricades,
providing.
things
So
Yeah, things-
essentially, we were all out of pocket. And I suggested, and they were saying, well, they only make $10,000 on the program anyway. I said, we'd be farther ahead if we just gave them the $10,000. We'd save the 20. We'd both, they'd come out the same, and we'd come out $10,000 ahead. So as a result of that, they proposed this sliding scale program where, depending on their profitability, and they have done a lot to improve the profitability over the last several years. Before that, like I say, they were lucky to make 10,000. This year they made over $30,000 on it. So we put together this program, and they signed off on it where we would get a certain percentage depending where the profit levels fell. Then this year, after they had the Darien Fest, they came to us and they wanted to cut it from $7,000 reimbursement to $3,500 after they'd already made the $30,000. I think Brian and the mayor went back to them and they said, well, it's not really fair retroactively. You've already had this done. This was the agreement we had in place for this year, so it should be part of the budget process. That's why they're submitting that this year. One other thing I guess I'd like to throw in terms of the cover memo that Brian put in saying the additional policing costs are about $14,500. I know the chief has done some things to get that number down somewhat. It is $14,500, but then we also have in a separate category, we have that camera rental that we were talking about last week or the week before. That adds an extra $1,500 and some small amount for barricades, probably maybe another $500. So all total, we still have about $16,000, $17,000 that we are throwing into the pot. And they're proposing the more profitable they get. I mean, essentially cutting what we're getting after so many years of subsidizing them, cutting it in half of where it was last year, now that they're finally making money.
So can I go back to this? I'm looking at the police budget, and the Darien Fest line item just for the police is 14,500. So that amount, it's not the net amount, right? It's the
Correct.
amount, right?
That's the gross.
So then whatever we get
But in addition,
reimbursed, which in this case might be 4,500 if they're at the $25,000 mark. No, if they're at the $25,000 mark, we only get 2,500 back.
right, under the new plan.
Yeah.
And it's not only the 14,500, as I said, we have the camera
Right, right.
rental.
Yeah.
So, just to be clear to the residents, the city spends between $16,000 and $17,000 to support the Darien Fest,
Right.
primarily out of the police department.
I think that's a little light, but it's close.
Okay, so we'll call it 16 to 17. And in a very good year, we would have gotten roughly $7,000 back of that 17. So we'd still be out of pocket. The residents would be would be paying through their taxes $10,000 towards supporting the Darien Fest.
Right.
But now the Chamber of Commerce wants to change that arrangement. So-
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually Downers Grove had something similar. They always had their Heritage Fest, and they were actually losing money on it as we were. And I believe several years ago, they just discontinued, well, they said
They have some new thing.
They
They
were
have
going
something
to
in
fund
place
it.
of it.
It was a
that's not
private
quite
venture that took it over.
Now it's a private venture, so it's not subsidized
It's not
by
the chamber,
at
right,
all.
right.
No,
No,
Right.
Rotary
It's not the city.
It's Rotary Club of Downers Grove that took it over.
But Downers Grove is not now longer out of pocket anything. They
Right,
reimbursed
right,
everything.
right.
And what
And-
Claire had told us was this is not a make or break deal. If the city council, doesn't want to revise this, they'll still continue with the fest.
Is there any explanation on why the current system doesn't work?
I guess they
Well,
want.
I think they look at this, I'll speak for them, is what I understand they say. They do this as a community event, but it's their largest fundraiser, and certainly there's a lot of time and effort put into that, and I think they're just trying to make more money for the chamber. I mean, Kathy.
That, I would
yeah,
have to
that's-
concur with that. I think that's the reason why they wanted to change it, yeah.
Actually, Darien Fest was Darien Days, and was run in conjunction with Citizen of the Year and all that stuff.
No,
Wasn't?
no.
But
No.
it was called Darien Days, and it was, Darien Fest was originally instituted as a way of the residents, the merchants in the city of Darien, having an opportunity to be exposed to the residents within the city. I mean, when Kathy and Joanne Coleman did the food, you could only have a food vendor who was in Darien.
Yeah, it was, considered a community.
It was more.
Community event.
It has become a fundraiser for them, as Claire explained to me. It's now a fundraiser, whereas back then, it was done. The rationale for doing it was much different when it started, 25, 30, whatever it was, late 1980s. I don't know, but it was different. And now it's a fundraiser. Now they need that money.
The only question that I have, and maybe I'm just seeing too many numbers, net profit 1 to 24,999, that's 10%, that'd be $2,500. According to the memo, they're talking about 25 to 55,000, it would be 15% from 25,000 and up. So I'm questioning how we'd get $4,500 on 30,000.
Is it a max?
Well, 30,000 at 15%.
But according to this, it'd be 25 to 50. Do you see how I'm reading it?
Oh, I see the way you're reading it. Yeah, the way I guess we're reading it is if they go over 25, then we get 15%.
Correct.
You're saying that it would be incremental, sort of like tax rates.
Right,
On the first
exactly.
25,000, we only get 10%.
You got it.
I see that. I can see how it could be interpreted that way.
Should we go back
I
and,
could tell you Scott had met with them, and his cover memo, should be accurate, because he actually did discuss this, but
You were talking about the original plan, and you were interpreting that one.
yeah, the
Or
letter,
the new one.
the letter
You're
that
talking
was
new
written
one.
February 28th, 2014.
Okay, yeah.
But even under the new plan, it would still be a dramatically reduced number compared to where we.
Because they made, that was
So what
their
they're
number.
saying is, regardless, they're going to continue to run the fest.
yeah, that's what they told us, because I know, I've heard both at different times, obviously the fest is a lot of work for the chamber.
Yeah.
I don't know how many volunteers they have to put the fest on, but I know it's sometimes frustrating because it's a lot of work. So I'm not sure how long the fest will continue to go on. They've talked about maybe, alternative events, but for this year, they are going to continue with the fest.
Well, wasn't it at one time, Kathy, that the electric, Catania did the electric for free, and the Park District gave them the park for free? I mean, at one time, they had all that for free, wasn't it?
You know what, you couldn't prove it by me, but I know that's part of one of the birds under their saddle is how much they have to pay the Park District
Park
for
District.
the park.
So the Park District's not,
They're not they do not negotiate the
so
rate.
they're not anything out of pocket.
Right, correct.
Well,
Well,
they're made whole.
if there's any damage, they have to repair
Yeah,
the damage.
that's the wear and tear on the park, I guess, is what they're out of pocket.
And over and above that, though, Joe, they're just paying us based on the net profit, no matter what their expenses are, whether it be to the park district or anybody else. The 30,000 they made this year was after paying everybody else their share of the expenses.
It was after paying everybody?
Yes,
Net.
that's this is net profit that they're talking
Net
about.
profit.
Because I've, when she explained it to me one time, she said, well, we made 26,000, then 6,000 to the park district.
And then all the different groups.
Yeah, and it was like, and our profit was about $10,000 or $12,000. You're saying after they paid everybody, they had 30,000?
This year, yeah,
They wanted to reduce it?
yes. Yeah.
They have been doing a much better job managing it. Claire's gotten control of a lot of things, and they have done a much better job, and they have turned very profitable compared
Well,
to,
they had
like,
good,
say,
they had
Well,
better weather this
I
year,
think the
too.
weather had I mean, I'm sure they're doing great and they're improving each year that they hold it, but the weather was fantastic, so I can't imagine that doesn't have some of the,
That's the
numbers
risk they
to their
take, and that's
favor.
what they try to impress upon everybody, is that they're taking a huge risk
Mhm.
with all of the vendors they have coming in, with all the entertainment coming in,
So
and if the weather goes under.
Well,
Right.
they had one year where they had rain Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday all weekend, and none of their performers performed. Their crowds were small, and they lost a lot of money on those performances.
So I guess
They
I'm
had to pay
saying
all that.
over average, though, I mean, even though they creeped up to 30 this year, I don't think that tier over 25 is gonna be, all the time. I think that, I don't think we need to worry too much that they're gonna jump from 25 to 50 or anything like that.
well, and if you look at it, even at 20,000, our share of it's only $2,000 if they only make 20. So this year happened to be an anomaly, and I think they saw that they made a lot of money and would rather not give us as big a share of it.
Well, and we're still, so then on a $20,000 year, we're still spending 17.
That's
Well,
correct,
That,
yeah.
there's no sliding scale for us,
Right.
regardless of the weather. I mean, it's fixed. It's a fixed cost.
But we do that for the Halloween party for the Lions Club. We pay for the trolley. We do it for the 4th of July parade. We do things for non-for-profit or, non-for-profit groups all the time. I mean, maybe residents might just say that's what you should be doing as a city, providing that service, and we'll pay the taxes to support that. Maybe people look at it that way and they just accept that. I don't know.
Yeah, but those, Joe, that you're looking at generally 700 to maybe a couple $1,000.
I realize that.
Nowhere
I
near the amount
realize.
we're talking about here.
Well, yeah, I realize that.
But he does have a point. We are contributing to other,
Well, we're still contributing here. I mean, it's just a matter of how much. Whether it's 15,000 or 10,000. I mean,
Even the Lions, the Halloween, I'm sure we don't subsidize 100% of that. You guys.
Well,
put in quite a bit of it.
The Halloween party's paid for through in-kind and Lions donation. The city takes care of the trolley costs, that's all.
And what I don't know, Mike, or Mayor Weaver, you might recall, they do give out other part of their profits to other local groups that help.
oh, yeah,
Help them.
that's part,
So
yeah.
there's some more, I mean, they'll still end with 30, but they do give out more
Yeah,
than just
all the
us.
all the groups that volunteered, the Lions Club gets a donation, the Women's Club, all the other organizations that donate time get, and that comes out of that lowers the net number.
but the net profit was still 30 after all is said and done.
So they did real well this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's unfair to try to get something back for our municipal, for our police services, and it shows a big gap between, a regular year and a profitable year. And I mean, I think that, and I think that number is reflective of weather conditions, and it seems like, okay, they have a bad year, they pay $2,000 out of our $17,000 cost. That seems reasonable. And if it's a really good year and they're busy, and I'm assuming then, our police officers might be busier too, with more people and more potential,
Issues.
incidents and issues. I guess my perspective is I'd rather keep the existing program in place. That would be my vote.
My problem with Darien Fest, especially over the last 5 to 10 years, has always been that if it was something strictly for Darien residents, then paying the 17,000 is not a problem.
It's not.
But
It's
it's
very-
not just for Darien residents. There's a lot of people who go that don't even live in Darien. So we're subsidizing an event for non-Darien residents.
Well, that's an issue for the Darien Chamber of Commerce too. It's in attracting a lot more people than they would rather have.
And I'd want to see more Darien businesses in there than not.
I would too.
I think that's going to change, Joe, after you brought the issue up this year.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that message got through loud and clear.
Joe, at one time, they were all Darien vendors, all of them.
Then, I mean, I don't care, but just don't call it Darien Fest if you got 95% of vendors are not in Darien.
The problem with that issue was the cost to the business to bring in their operation into the park. And that's why a lot of them fell off over the years, because it was just a pretty big investment just to set up at the fest.
So what's our decision? Are we gonna keep it the way it is then?
Well, I vote for keeping it the way it is.
I'd want to keep it the way it is as well.
Me
Peter.
three.
I agree.
Sure.
Guess we keep it the way it is then.
Okay. I just have one other issue that I wanted to bring up after we've gone through all of these, how many days? Thank you, Ted, for coordinating.
Thanks, I
coordinating the
appreciate it.
meeting. We really appreciate that. I'd like to have you entertain doing a tax abatement again this year. I think from the savings we've seen from what we started out with, the numbers we started out with, to what we have now, I think in our general fund balance, I think are we close to 300,000? I think we're close to
Yeah, I can-
300,000. And I think in the capital projects, we've got some money too that we could combine together to come up with another tax abatement as we had last year. Your thoughts?
I have some, okay, first of all, what we're doing here doesn't include anything with the Heritage Center in case we were to go that route. So I would hesitate to do any abatements until we know the real picture of, that center. And then, I mean, going through this, I'm just concerned that a lot of things going up with the water mains and, the ash borer still isn't final. I mean, there's a lot of
Unknown.
things hitting us.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to
Yeah,
cut you off.
no, I'm just saying, so I'm hesitant to say right now that I'd be okay with that.
Well, we really have to move forward on our tax abatement shortly. We wouldn't, I don't think we'd be able to wait until your thoughts?
Well, the timing I was going to go over just briefly, because we have the water abatements on the next council agenda, and the way our city council meetings are, you really have till the end of March to file abatements with the county. So really, it would be the next city council meeting. But I think I've been keeping track of the numbers, and just to I guess succinctly get to the numbers that the mayor mentioned, the increase balance between the original budget that went to the council and the budget that we actually have today, that balance increased by $231,443. So the tax levy this year was a little different than last year because the police pension portion went up. So aside from the police pension and any else in there, there's about $433,000 that is just our general fund tax levy. So if you look at that number, the increased balance, the capital projects fund is also better than what we originally distributed by $51,790 in year 3. We shifted some projects. So if the abatement of 433, if the council was looking to do that, that would then take another 149 out of the fund balance from the new calculation, and all of that together would leave a fund balance of in the general fund of $2,576,691, which is really very close to what the original budget said. It's a little less than that.
Well, the original was 2.7, wasn't it?
Yes.
If I remember correctly. 2.7.
I'd like Treasurer Corn's thoughts on that.
Maybe I was misunderstanding something,
Let's
right?
do the
In the general fund, the original budget that I was showing showed an ending fund balance for your request of $2,726,000.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the updated sheets that I received today were $2,958,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
about
that's
$250,000.
Right.
Yeah, just
Yes.
in differences. And then the capital projects fund had a better swing in year 3 because we just moved a project, but that had a better projected fund balance of about $51,000.
So it's about a $300,000 to the good then, where's,
Yeah,
where are we getting I thought we were talking 500,000?
well, no, the difference this year, Mike, is in the tax levy. The general amount for the tax levy this year was 433,000 because we kept our aggregate tax levy level.
Same.
But so the police pension levy went up and was increased, and by that same amount, we reduced the general, what I'll call the general fund tax increase. So that portion this year was only 433,000. So that would be the abatement that residents would notice on their tax bill and compared.
So last year we abated 525,000 or something, if I
Yes.
recall. So this year you're or potentially we're talking 400.
Right.
Yeah, when I
$440,000.
looked at the tax levy that I just pulled up, that was the number 433 this year. So again, it changed because the police pension fund went up and our general levy request went down.
You know, I guess if we were to choose to build this, the Heritage Center ourselves, we'd be bonding it. So I don't think it becomes an issue. You're talking about cash out of pocket.
Yeah, there's
that
some
you'd be concerned
combination,
about.
right, Mayor? There's a combination that we had talked about, separate and aside in the capital projects fund. And looking out in year 3, the capital projects fund still had $1.7 million, which is, it gets less to year 3, but it still had, I'll say a significant amount of money in there in year 3. So,
Other thoughts?
I don't know if I got my comment yet.
No, you didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're asking me directly my
Yep.
personal feeling on it.
Yes.
I personally, I love the idea of a tax abatement. I loved what we did last year. But I've got to agree with Alderman Belke. I mean, yeah, we have tweaked it a little bit. We've come up with a couple $100,000 here. Even though the capital projects looks better, we have accelerated Gale Avenue into this year. And I don't have clarity in terms of the Heritage Center. I agree we would go with bonding, but that would be bonding in my mind because we're going to use the money for the Heritage Center and we do the bonding in essence to replace our capital
Right,
projects.
right.
And I personally don't believe we should do bonding to do capital projects. I personally feel if we need to do capital projects, be it streets or ditch projects or whatever it is, that we should increase the taxes rather than borrow money and just kick that can
Well,
down the road
you know
for
the
years.
logic that they were using here to get to tax exempt
Yeah,
status
yeah,
in
and
our
that's
in our
why
bonding.
I would agree
Yes.
with the bonding for that small portion of it, but I'm saying overall, I don't agree with the policy of issuing bonds for public works projects unless, as I had indicated previously, if we're going to decide it's important to do and we need to do it all this year, then let's borrow all the money and do all the next 10 years, 15 years worth and pay off those bonds over 15 years. That's not what we're looking at.
And we typically don't do that. We typically use cash to do our capital
Right,
projects. We
but
don't.
what I'm saying is when we do run out of money in the capital projects, I would not support a bond levy to do an annual amount of capital projects. If we're doing $2 million of streets and ditches per year, I would not support $2 million of bonds to be issued that year to do those projects.
Accepted, yes.
I would think that we should, if that's going to be what our normal is and we don't have the cash, then the residents, if they want the streets and we feel the ditches and the streets are important, as well as the other capital projects, that should come out of each year's revenue rather than borrowing and paying the additional interest on it.
Well, that has been our policy for all of our history.
And we've been fortunate, we've been able to live that way. But as we're looking forward, the other thing besides the Heritage Center, we're projecting sales taxes are going to be flat for quite some time because we've had to do the incentives for Walmart and for Home Depot. So we're not going to get the growth there, and yet we know we're going to have growth, and we have union contracts, public services. We just came up with a new contract. We know the police contract is coming up. We hope the police pension fund the investments are doing well. There's no guarantees as far as what that number will be or what kind of relief you might get from the state, if any, on those numbers. So right now, I guess my personal feeling is I don't know enough to be able to support it, sort of like Tina's feeling.
Other thoughts?
I'm sorry, just to add, Mike, just obviously, as I'm looking at the numbers, in my head, it's much more simplistic. I'm taking what the city council got at the beginning for a proposed budget and what they have now, and other than 149,000, there's not much difference with the abatement. So when you're throwing all the different things in, which everybody would do in their head, it's still it's still comparing what the council originally had to what they're looking at today. So all of those things, were factored in. I think the unknown of the Heritage Center and other things were factored in. But in any event, I think in terms of doing the math, because you have to always look at that,
Right.
Different things.
If we're going to talk about this on the next meeting, of course, why can't we take a look at the numbers? For me, I'm looking at so many numbers for the past 5 weeks. Is there a way that we could get an updated version based on the abatement and, the updated and all the information? That way I can take a look at a 3-year outlay again?
Well,
'Cause
if the council, if the majority of the council is interested in the abatement, I would have to put it on for the next council meeting, and then I could put what you're talking about together. And I'm just telling you, the net difference among those changes is 149,890. But I could put it together if there's interest in looking at that.
Because I know I'm tired after looking at all these numbers. At 149, yeah, I'm interested in it, but I'd like to see how the numbers come on out.
How about if we do it during the work session? It will put on the agenda, but discuss it during the work session. And of course, if there's no agreement to do it, we'll take it off the agenda.
I just haven't, I think we should probably
I'm
finish.
just
sorry.
throwing it out
I
to,
know,
so that before you make up your mind what you want to do.
See, I like that idea, because like I said, I'm looked at so many numbers the last 5 weeks, I want to take a look at them again, so.
Yeah.
One of the items that I think when did we increase when did we add the tax to the utilities? How long ago?
Oh my
was it?
gosh, that's.
08,
Couple years
probably,
ago,
Mike?
08, 09. Well, that was my other argument, the
Mhm.
first meeting that you didn't attend. My first comments were, we did raise those taxes
Yep.
at that point, and we have not reduced those, and I'm not suggesting that we reduce those.
Right. But that is something that's been hanging out there, to me, personally.
Yeah, the sales tax and
You
the
know what,
utility taxes.
when does the Water Commission 1/4% tax fall off? Did it already fall off?
No, it didn't fall off yet, but there is a date, I believe, in the
I
statute.
know there was a date. That was part of the
several years
deal.
out.
Yeah, that we would be going down to 8% as opposed to 8 1/4.
Right now, on your sales tax, you
Mhm.
pay a small part to the Water Commission. That is
But that's
to
the
go.
county rate. That has nothing to do
Well, I
with
think
what
Kathy
we
just
collect.
meant the whole rate,
Okay.
a sales tax rate. But
Other thoughts?
I'm with Alderman Belke. I think it's, we got a lot on our plate. I would hate to see us give a tax rebates. I mean, $450,000 over 9,000 homes, what you're figuring. I'd hate to see somebody, we drop some of these taxes $50.
Well, they would stay at what they're
Okay.
this year. Yeah.
Okay. I just hate to see it do that and then, turn around and raise it, in, 2017 if our capital funds are down.
What's the impact roughly? Do we know? If you don't abate?
If we
What's
don't
the-
debate,
yeah.
probably, we were working with those numbers last week, probably in the range of about $60 to $70
Yeah,
per
60 to
household
70.
for a typical 300, maybe
Okay.
$300,000.
So if we don't abate, they would see an increase of about $60 to $70 on their
Tax
Well,
bill,
Compared
yes,
to last year, yes.
yes.
Well,
Alderman
not
Belzak?
technically, when we did the abatement last time, that doesn't necessarily mean the whole rate, the whole bill went down, because
No,
there
it's
was
be-
other,
right,
but
right.
it's so,
Oh, yeah,
so we-
our
you know
line
what I mean?
item,
So it
yes.
got
No,
diluted a little, which
I
is
understand that, yeah.
unfortunate.
And the
I
city
know.
council talked about that last year, because a lot of residents that aren't watching or reading things, they'll look at their tax bill, because the city council abated, and that's a good thing. They'll look at it this year without an abatement, and they'll see their tax bill going up,
Right.
but it'll be equal to what it was 2 years ago. But a lot of people just don't realize
They don't
it was a
analyze it.
one-year
Right.
abatement.
Yeah, actually, Alderman Seifert sent a link out, which I shared with my residents, that they could actually see. It gives you, I think, a 3-year history on a line-by-line basis of where your tax dollars have gone, or up and down. And ours have gone down. I think over the last few years.
I did that. And
Yeah,
I went in and I looked at mine.
Yeah.
And mine have gone up over $200.
But not for Darien.
Not for Darien.
No, not for Darien.
Mine have gone up primarily with District 86 and District 63.
Right.
51.
Right.
Alder-
That's
yeah,
the number.
excuse me, Alderman
I
Belzak, your thoughts?
kind of agree with everyone else that I wasn't expecting this today, so I would like to see the numbers, like Ted said, in black and white.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly not against it, but
Yeah.
I want a little time to think about it.
Okay, great. I think Alderman,
I feel the same way.
okay. Let's work up something for the next, for
For
Monday night.
evening.
And
Okay.
we'll just deal with it in the work session.
Could I bring up something that's you're gonna hate, Mayor? Why are we paying $8,000 for the fireworks? Why did we decide to do that? I wasn't here that day.
Weren't here
Yeah,
that
you
night.
missed
No,
it.
you
I
weren't here
know,
that day.
I'm sorry, but, you know, we're at this late,
I- I brought up the
I want
issue.
to, I missed the
I
discussion.
brought up the issue
Mhm.
because I met with Mayor Cunningham of Woodridge and Mayor Tully of Downers Grove. They've been footing the bill for the fireworks, and a lot of our residents go to those fireworks.
But we were
I
up to a
asked-
certain period.
Well, yeah, and when did we
I
stop?
think probably 2008 or 9.
Time we've made the,
Yeah.
when we
Yes.
started
When we cut a lot
charging
of
more in
things.
taxes. That's what I'm saying. We charge the residents more in the utility taxes and that, and that's why I was hoping not to get those other things added. One part of that discussion, I hate to keep bringing up these goofy fireworks, but one part of that discussion that we had, we left it where we requested staff to find out. I think Alderman Seifert indicated that it was about $1,000 per minute of fireworks. And we asked staff to go back and find out if, with our $8,000 contribution, would they have a better display, better fireworks display than they've had in the past. Brian, I don't know if his.
Well,
that-
they would take the cost and divide it by the 3 communities based on population. So in essence, it would reduce their cost. It wouldn't add another 8,000 to the expense of the fireworks.
Okay, so there would be no difference in the fireworks display, whether we contribute or whether we don't. It's just
Yeah.
basically a goodwill payment.
I think it would be, because they're doing theirs on a per capita basis also.
No,
So I
but-
think it would increase the fireworks
That's
display.
not what, I mean, what had happened is when we dropped out, they reduced the fireworks show. Both communities did, and they weren't happy with it. It was a bad show. So they increased it back to the level when we participated, and they just split the cost in 2. They feel that they provide a nice fireworks display now. So they would continue that with that display, and then they would just divide that expense by the 3 communities, again, based on population. That's what we were told.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess, I wouldn't, you know, I haven't heard a single resident that said, you know, boy, we should support those fireworks displays. So
Yeah, but they can go watch it.
I don't know, I actually don't know people that go anymore, but maybe they do, I guess.
That's 8,000 we can abate.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, I'd rather do that.
Very simply.
I mean, they can still go. There's so many of them too. I mean, they're all going on simultaneously. You know, honestly, you can go to any community and you're not participating. I mean, I don't know. And I think it's bad for the environment, but that's just me.
I have another topic that we don't need to get into tonight, but things that we didn't talk about yet, which is the Historical Society and, you know, their crucial kind of end of the road, fork in the road.
I
and-
know. I talked to Brian about this because that's another issue I was going to bring up this evening. But we have not had a definitive request from the Historical Society saying, take us in. I, of course, think that's probably the way it's going to happen. But, or we can just give a contribution to them to help them get a lot of the archiving materials that they need. But we could possibly add that into our budget at a later date after we get a request from the Historical
I'd
Society.
rather spend
How far would they-
$8,000 on my on
I
the
was
historical
gonna say, how
side.
far would $8,000 go?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, do we have any idea, if we did take them on, they became part of the city, how it would be organized, what part of the tax bill? I mean, do we have any idea how much money they need per year to survive?
Well,
that's why we have to,
you saw the business plan.
yeah.
I saw the
yeah.
business plan,
Okay, so-
and I saw their costs.
That's actually what they're looking for. I think that, you know, the initial capital projects have a cost, but going forward on an annual basis, what are we talking? Maybe $25,000 to support them?
Well, I mean, what was hard for them to figure, and even in terms of that business plan, when they talked about programs, you know, future programs, and enhancing their future programs. We all know the cost of the building, the furnace, the roof, things like that. That was very clear, what was there. But when they talk about programming in the future, it's hard for them to go out and really project what that's going to cost them in terms, you know, how many more dresses will they, antique or whatever they did. That's what I would want to know in terms of their costs, because then that tells us as a city, beyond regular maintenance of a building, it's going to be X amount of dollars per year that they would need from the city of Darien. And then again, I guess the question is how much, are they afraid of losing that autonomy? Are they afraid of having Big Brother say, you know, you gotta become part of this process now? And
My feeling was, when I initially met with them, is that they wanted to actually make sure, stay in control. They just need a revenue source.
they need a revenue source, right?
That's about it. They want to be able to run it themselves.
And right now, I mean, I have the numbers in front of me. They're running at about a $2,000 deficit, about 2,300, and their capital line that they need is about 43,000.
Yeah, well, they can't raise that money on their own. They really can't.
Tina, I don't recall if that included some HVAC work. I think that was donated, so I'm not sure if
The
that's
furnace was
been-
donated.
I'm
The
not sure
furnace-
if
I don't
that's
think
been.
that includes that.
Okay.
Let me look.
Yeah. So my feeling was that, now we have another initiatives meeting coming up in April, and at that point, we can ask the Historical Society to make an offer.
And I think we need to circle back I don't know if we heard from everybody and what their constituents think about that too, and their position, if they would be willing to, contribute. I don't even know if we've gotten there yet.
I remember we did have one discussion when I first brought up the whole issue, and I think the feeling around the table was, let them do more to help themselves first, before we would entertain taking them over.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions that we kept throwing back at them.
But
So-
but they have done a lot of those things we've asked. I mean, they went out, looked at that Chicago Cares and found out they weren't gonna come out to this area. They were a volunteer organization. They wrote grants, they've applied for grants as we've told them to. They itemized what they needed in terms of cost, and in the process, they got a furnace that's gonna be donated. to
Do
them.
they, what do other municipalities do? I mean, I know Downers Grove's got some, something.
It's 50-50, in the research that I saw,
Naperville,
yeah, that they're under the umbrella of the municipality.
Or is it
Some is
sometimes
the
under the
parks.
parks? I was gonna say, sometimes it's the park
Oh,
district.
that first night that I was here, the only night I was here, that Ted was here, they gave a breakdown. And some were park district, some were municipalities.
And the,
Some were private or
Some were private.
not-for-profit.
yeah, and the park district has the only ability to levy a tax strictly for a historical society.
Really? That's
Yeah.
interesting.
That's the way the state law is.
But Kathy, I wasn't at your last intergovernmental meeting, but wasn't it said at the last intergovernmental meeting that the park district says they can't take them on? The school district said they can't take them on.
Well,
Really, you
the
only
the
proved
problem, here's the real glitch. We took a look at the agreements, the leases and whatnot, and, they're 10-year leases, but we have a 60-day out. And if we get out of the lease, it falls back to the school. And then it'll be on their school's shoulders to do what to do with it.
Can you move the building across the street to the Heritage Plaza?
Actually, it's funny you should say that.
Next to the fountain.
That's funny you should
Say
say
we
that
move it
because
next to City Hall.
when we did,
I'm telling you.
I asked them if they would consider moving it to Myers Woods, But it turns out that the Historical Society did all the fundraising to repair the Myers barn. The Park District is using it for all their equipment and stuff. So, and now the Park District says they've done some improvements also there. So that's a little bit of a sticking point there between the two organizations. But I suggested, do you remember how many of you have been on the board since we got the first proposal for our downtown center? We were going to take over the whole triangle, and we were going to make it a little bit, put a little history there. And
It's just a bad location to get in and out of, and,
Yeah.
I've been in there for various things, but, yeah, I mean, it's limited in terms of what you could use it for, other than school groups or Cub Scouts or things like that. 'cause
well,
it's
that's why,
very space
they
limited.
need their most critical need right now is archiving. Archiving the materials they have, because a lot of it is disintegrating right before their eyes. And then getting them online so people can use them as a resource.
Isn't that something that
resource
could
tool.
be,
Research
so
tool.
library district can't take that on, it seems?
Indian Prairie argument was that they cover not only Darien, but they cover Burr Ridge, Willowbrook, and I forget what else.
You know all those things they have on the wall,
Yeah,
okay. What Dee Bonkin was saying is, what they really have to do is they have to take everything out of each one of those and archive it, because those materials are deteriorating.
They're all newspaper articles cut out,
They're all
put
falling
up
apart.
there, yeah. So, I mean, it's, you know, it,
Can your GPS system do something with that?
Oh, man.
What would you like it to do?
Put it to a satellite and back down.
Kathy, you even
Archive
asked
it.
them if they'd be willing to move to the White House over there on Bailey Road. What is it?
Castle Eden.
Castle, because that is a historical.
Carmelites leaving.
Yeah.
okay, that belongs to the
But they said
Carmelites.
no. They said no about that.
You know, so I thought that, I thought about bringing it up for discussion during our budget process, but, you know, they haven't really made a formal offer to us. So I guess maybe we'll wait until they make a formal offer and then decide how we want to handle it. If we want to just donate some money to them or take them over.
Maybe their new neighbor across the street can donate some money to them too, right?
Who's that?
Chase?
Oh.
They're built first.
Yeah. By the way,
They're getting their plans. Their plans are being reviewed at DuPage County right now.
Our schedule is correct. I sent Jeff Mecklin an update today, requested an update, and I did not hear back from him.
Anything else at all?
Well, I guess, I'm just thinking too, we will, should have an executive session Monday evening to update the council on the property sale price point, but at least our initial feedback was positive, so
Okay.
we can talk more about it in closed session, but, you know, obviously that could affect the budget, but it won't, the timing won't be so.
Oh, gosh, no, yeah,
Such.
that causes a problem. Can we start earlier that night? Is there a police committee
The
meeting?
police
that-
committee.
We have a
Shoot.
police committee meeting, but so far it's all informational items.
So we can just wait till April to have a police committee meeting. I
At
mean,
this point,
if
I
there's not
don't-
enough agenda items.
Yeah, because if we're going to talk about a tax abatement, we need some time
Yeah,
for that, and then
I would say then that I would cancel the police committee meeting and just have the next one in April, the
Okay.
third.
Can you let Joanne Regona know that?
we
I
need to
will,
know
yeah.
that right away.
Yeah.
So,
And then we would start our work session at
Early?
6:30?
well,
mean-
we just need an extra, we need to discuss the,
Well, we have
The,
police committee at 6.
Mm-hmm.
So we
oh,
could start
okay,
at
so we
6.
could start
Sorry,
at
at 6.
6:30. Yeah, you
could
could still do
start.
your meeting at 6 o'clock. We could start our additional work session at 6:30.
Why don't we, because it's informational, since we've been trying to do that little tour, why don't we just do the tour of the station for half an hour and come over here
Yeah.
at 6:30?
Yeah, all right, I'll talk to,
Okay.
I'll send a note out to the chief tonight about that and just say,
For the evidence room, I want to go to that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll just do it from 6
We
to
all see
6:30.
that?
Yeah, I mean,
We all
anyone
wanna be
who's,
here at
want.
6 o'clock.
yeah,
We all see
anyone
that?
who's interested in
Shoot,
touring
I've
the
got coffee with the mayor, or the
evidence
meet and
room.
greet upstairs.
Because I want to see that. I'd
Yeah,
like to see
yeah,
that.
Yeah, I
just
do
6
too.
o'clock, you
6
said?
o'clock.
So
on-
6 o'clock will be posted as a police committee that will
Committee,
allow
yeah.
all the, any of the aldermen to
Correct.
join the committee at that, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the two issues would be the Heritage
wait.
Plaza and
If everyone tours, is
property
it just
tax.
strictly a police committee meeting then?
It's, you can have other aldermen attend your police
As long as we're not
committee, as long as it's
just
posted.
Posted, okay,
Yeah, there's no council action that will
Okay.
be taken.
gotcha. So it'd be a tour only.
And then 6:30 would be the
Work session.
work session.
Work session, and this council could
Heritage
use that.
Plaza and the property tax abatement.
Probably start with the property tax, see how long that goes, and you might stick for the Heritage Plaza, but,
Okay,
okay.
that's a little bit more cut and dried. Okay.
Anything else? I want to thank everybody for the last 4 weeks. You guys did a great job. Thank you.
You have
Has it-
done it- you've
Has
done
it
an
only been
excellent
4
job.
weeks?
Long 4
somebody's
weeks.
job, Mr. Chairman.
Long.
Thanks, I
Lifetime.
appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Good night, everybody.
Mr. Prescription.
I missed the prescription, that's all right, I'll go tomorrow. Do we have enough salt to get us through to the next storm?
Shoot.